Hi, I'm Mac McCarthy, and I help people with their breakups. And today we're going to talk about best breakup advice with action steps versus surface-based breakup advice. I'm also going to throw in tailored advice. So a lot of times if you're searching YouTube for breakup advice, for breakup help, for how to get my ex back, there's a lot of options these days. I've been doing this for 5 years, and I've never seen more coaches, more people giving simple surface advice packaged differently, flashier, but it's the same advice. And really, the reason there is so much surface advice is because it's for the masses. Okay, it's scalable. It applies to everyone. If someone says all men, all women, it's going to be surface-based advice. Okay, and there's no problem with it. And a lot of times, like I said, if it's packaged really well, and it could be popular. Okay. The thing is, when someone says attachment theory, okay, I'm not saying attachment theory have some legitimate qualities to it, but really, when you look at it, attachment theory, just as fearful avoidant. Someone says, "Oh, my ex is fearful avoidant," and they don't go into the details or the issues of why they're fearful avoidant. That could be applied to very surface based. Okay, that's all I got. He was a narcissist. What did he do? What were the problems? What happened? What was wrong? That's different, right? It's surface based. If you just tell me someone's a jerk, all men are jerks, all women only care about money, you're just projecting what's happened to you, and it's surface based. Okay. So attachment theory comes up a lot, Percy Blue. And what happens is it's 4 boxes you can put your partner in. The problem is if you're going to go through attachment theory, it's a thing that a specialized person that's their field and that's what they ride with, then fine. If you're going to go around diagnosing other people and your exes with what attachment style they have, I think that it's convenient to put them under that umbrella. But attachment theory, what it loses is there's situations where it's not true. So someone that's a fearful avoidant can do something that's out of that realm, title, or label because of a situation. And then you go, well, it doesn't just lie. It's a theory, not an opinion. You call someone a narcissist, right? That is a surface label that doesn't get to the bottom of the details of what makes them a narcissist, right? It can be useful, but it's not going to be one of those things where you get to the bottom of it. Okay. And so what happens is people fall in love with it because there's a lot of research on it and it makes things easier, right? It's like, oh, well, they're this style, so I have to act this way around them. But what you're not keeping in mind is how they got there. So if I went through all your series of moments in your life, right? If I went through all the problems, experiences, accolades, birthday parties, graduations, that makes you who you are, and it decides how you make decisions. So when someone says, "Oh, I hate cats," you hate cats and the other person loves cats. Well, the other person that loves cats had 2 of them when they were a kid and they lived to 15 years and their mom loved cats. The person that doesn't like cats is allergic to them, has never had one as a pet, and actually was bitten by one when they were 8 years old. So how can one theory or one label explain people's life experiences based on because everything's based on now you're making choices in your life, right? So when you're making these choices, what are they based on? Attachment theory can explain some things, but it can't explain everything, and it could be more confusing. Now, action step advice, things you can do to gain a new perspective and go below the surface to the seeds of the problems. A problem has roots, okay? 5 years ago when I first started this journey, breakup coaching, I didn't get this deep. I would talk to people about their stories, which is deeper than just saying, oh, you're in a toxic relationship. Probably one of the most overused blanket surface statements that can mean 10,000 things. If I was to tell someone, well, that's not as toxic as other people, they'd get really upset because what level of toxicity applies? Now, tailor advice, much deeper than it's what I do with stories. What happened to you so I can give advice based on your situation and what makes you tick? What are you looking for? So someone that's out of a breakup, they're not all looking to get their ex back. They might be looking to get revenge. They might be looking to get validation. That's different than getting them back, isn't it? If you want advice for that, it would be different. Now, a way to dig below the surface. Okay, number one, we fight all the time versus what are you fighting about? So again, surface statement, you talk to friends. Oh, we just fight all the time. Mom, your sister, your brother, your colleague goes, oh man, me and my wife or girlfriend fight all the time too. That's just how women are. They're emotional creatures, surface-based. You end talking about it. What are you fighting about? Oh, we're fighting about the fact that I don't take out the trash and she's tired of me leaving crumbs from my toast on the kitchen table. These are real things that people fight over, right? Someone will go, oh, that's petty. Then you go a little deeper. Well, actually, her mom just went into the hospital, and before she didn't bring these things up, but now that her mom's been in the hospital, or she just started a new job, these are all kinds of things that affect people's behavior that's below the surface that can be explained and create a new perspective, okay? What's the process that leads to the arguments? So I've talked about this before. Sometimes you're like, yeah, she's always angry. So what time is she angry? Right when she gets home from work. Is she in traffic for 2 hours after work? What leads to what's the process of this? Okay. Number 3, what are some outside things going on that has led to the change in behavior? This is something I get to a lot of times and people are shocked. It's very predictable when someone changes because they change jobs. That's one of the number one things. If you change schools, communities, housing, roommates, those things are going to change behavior. And a lot of times you're like, I don't know what happened. Well, she used to work at a bank and now she works at a nightclub. She's going to act different. Is she going to have more temptation? Yeah. Yeah. And she started hanging out with this single friend all the time. There you go. That's going below the surface of like, we have problems, right? A lot of your videos will take a problem and they'll make it for the masses, right? It's just like if someone goes, oh, this is the advice to get your ex back. For who? For everyone? It wouldn't apply to everyone. So something that I started doing recently, I was asking myself, I've been taking a step back from live streams a little bit, and how can I really help people with the knowledge I have going below the surface? Because the number one thing you can do is go to writemac.com and book a live coaching session and unpack your situation, your interpretation of the story. And then I can give you tailored advice. Then we get to the bottom of why you're feeling the way you do, because it's unique to you. Now, going back to attachment theory, I don't have a problem with it, but people are using it as if it's factual. So that's a big thing for people to realize. Theories are not factual. There's no way, and also it was invented 50 years ago. So what did people do before attachment theory? It can be useful, and some people really line up with the attachment things. But at the end of the day, it's a theory. It's not factual. It doesn't apply to everything. So if you are married to the concept, you're going to be disappointed because you're going to go, wait, if she's an avoidant, but she didn't do this when really everything points to that. And if you read all the articles about attachment theories, there are theories upon the theory, right? It can get very technical. But how can human beings fit in 4 boxes? That's my question. Someone that was really into attachment theory that came on the live stream before was like, well, give me something better. This is what I'm going to tell you. People need to get to the story of what makes someone a fearful avoidant. What are the specific problems in your relationship that you can't overcome? So today I'm going to give you an example of something new I'm doing on the channel. I could possibly make a new channel, but for right now, I'm going to keep these posted. I haven't posted this one on the YouTube channel yet, but basically it's a mind map. We'll pull this up. A mind map with, first of all, a concept of how to deal with your breakup. And at the end of every mind map, what I'll do is I'll give you an action step that you can actually do immediately that can be moving forward out of wherever you are in your breakup or your situation. All right. And I think that's really important because a lot of times what's happening is people are, especially when it comes to, let me pull this down a little bit, especially when it comes to, so identifying problems after your breakup. No contact. People feel like, well, I'm not doing anything. There's no action to it, right? And it's really hard, right? So here's some action steps that you can be taking. So identify the problems after your breakup. You've heard me talk about this before, but I'm going to do it in a new way. And I'm going to be making these mind maps PDFs. And then you can get them yourselves from me. Right now, I don't have them hooked up to my website, but I will in the future. So after writing your story and unpacking it with a coach therapist, it's time to strain out the problems. So I really like that term, strain out the problems. Because a lot of times you're just like, oh, she's talking to someone else. The problem's a little deeper than that. The problem's way deeper than that usually. So here you go. Subtopic. So we have make a list of the problems and have 3 categories. This is something new that I've applied. So let me take this a step further. Fixable, accepted, non-negotiable, or adaptable. Now think about that for a minute. So if we have 4 different types of problems, just like, well, I wrote 3 categories, but there's 4 there. So number 1, a fixable problem. And if we go over here, a fixable problem would be what? Let's take it a little further. Keep in mind something isn't fixable just because you want it to be. So you break up and you go, you know what? I know we can work on that, but your partner hasn't confirmed that they want to work on that or that it's a problem. You are going to make an effort or have a plan. Okay. Fixable is something that is 100% on you and you know the solution. You just have to go to work on it. Okay. So if you have a problem and you're like, oh no, we can work on that. That's fixable. It's only fixable if the other person agrees, number 1, it's a problem. And number 2, they want to work on it. Now, the problems that are completely 1000% fixable are the ones you can work on. They're clearly identified and you can go to work on it. Okay. So another example of a fixable problem is something that your ex or partner will meet you halfway on the bridge. Look at this, HAVE I wrote here. They support your efforts. Okay? Think about that for a minute. So post breakup, this is why it's really good to talk to me when you're in a situationship or you're about to break up. More people are coming to me during that time. Let me know if this is readable, if I need to make this a little bit bigger for people. Now, someone meets you halfway on the bridge. They go, you know what? I know that's a problem. Drugs and alcohol addiction. I've talked about this many times. That's a clear problem, and many people identify with it. Many people have dealt with it in their family. Now, if we go a little further with that, okay? Someone says, yeah, that's the problem. Hey, I'm going to support you through rehab. They meet you halfway on the bridge. Someone goes, you know what? I don't think that you're going to be able to do that. I don't think that you're going to be able to do that. And I don't want to sit around and support you for another year, you trying to figure it out. You're going to have to, you've identified that problem as fixable for yourself. So fixable problems can be done for yourself or as a team, but the other person needs to agree. Now, let me get back to this. Is this useful and helpful the way this mind map is? Please let me know in the comments. Now, the next one. Your ex broke up with you because you always broke up and never have money to pay. You're always broke and you never have money to pay bills. This is a real problem. You get a job, you start a training program for a career, or you get a loan from a family member to pay some bills. Those are solutions to the problem. The partner can say, I still want to break up with you because I believe that you're not really going to fix that, right? So the partner could also stay with you and support you and believe in you that this is time you'll keep that job or you'll finish that training program. Now, the partner has a choice to still break up with you as they don't believe the problem will be fixed in a day. And they aren't sticking around to see if it does. It's on you to prove them wrong or do it for yourself. So identifying the problems, that's why I say the story first, train out the problems. And you can fixable problems are things you're willing to fix and you know a solution path, right? All right, so let's get back to acceptable problems. This is a really interesting one, okay? Now, let me go a little deeper on this. An acceptable problem, you accept that this was a problem for you, but it's not worth breaking up over, and you can now accept it. So when you're facing a breakup, losing someone, losing a relationship, or being apart and no contact, you go, you know what? I was being petty, right? And I say that in the next part here. After a breakup, sometimes you wish you wouldn't have been so petty about problems that seem small now. Okay, so now if you were like, you know what, you never walk the dog, you're so lazy, and then out post breakup or when you've had some time apart, you go, you know what, I'm okay with walking the dog. You work all day, you're on your feet all the time. I can understand. So you almost come to your senses and you realize the problem that I was creating before isn't that bad. I can actually accept it in my partner. All right. A friend of mine was recently saying how much he hates that his wife chews with her mouth open. This might be gross to some people. Chews with her mouth open, but it's something he accepts, right? It's something that he can live with. It's something that he's dealt with for years. And that's something that after a breakup, sometimes you wish you wouldn't have been so petty on these problems. For example, they smoke cigarettes and you've been with them for 2 years and they always smoke cigarettes. For obvious health reasons, you want them to quit. But it's not something that you can't accept. It doesn't hurt your personal relationship too much. So that's another way that you can look at these problems that you have listed. Now, non-negotiable. So these are unacceptable problems and are usually reasons people break up and stay broken up. Going back on these problems and acting as if they are okay will strip you of your dignity and self-respect. This will create another breakup in the future. Okay? So these are the biggest ones. You come across them, it's like big ones are cheating, stealing, physical abuse. These are boundaries that people cannot come back from, cannot forgive, and it's a choice. Example, your partner cheats on you with your best friend, not just with anyone, your best friend, right? Tells you it was a mistake, they won't do it again. The event happened, trust is broken, and now you have a choice to forgive them or break up with them. You can't fix this, but you can negotiate a punishment or new rules. So if someone's going to make it through this, they're probably going to have to come up with some system or punishment or things to make it okay, right? I've heard of couples where the girlfriend's like, I'm not going to sleep with you for a month. And I want to know everything that happened. Now you're negotiating something. Some couples are like, I can never get over that. I can never accept cheating. There's no excuse for it. And it was my best friend, right? So the circumstances count. That's a classic case where you get someone just left a comment on one of my old videos. Cheating is never appropriate. It's never acceptable. Well, the circumstances can be different. If someone cheats with your best friend, isn't it worse? If someone cheated with someone you've never met before on a conference in New York and you live in Miami, would it be easier for you to maybe forgive them. Depends on the person, but yeah, the circumstances are different. Think about that. All right, so we have an action step at the end here. Let me get to these, and let me know what you guys think about this idea of. So then we have negotiable steps. You have a problem with your partner, but you're willing to meet them halfway on the bridge. Okay. In most cases, a problem has occurred, but it's not something you can't work out with each side giving in a bit. So you feel like your partner has been drinking, has a drinking problem. They go out on the weekends with single friends and get drunk. This is a very common problem. You call them an alcoholic, yet they have a job and don't drink every day. You both sit down, you decide, okay, if you go out with friends drinking, you're always invited. So right there, you're like, I just don't want you going alone. I'm okay with you drinking on the weekends, but I want to be invited. You will never drive home for obvious reasons. And if you'll stop going to bars. So I don't have a problem so much that you're drinking, but going out to bars as opposed to going to a nice restaurant that maybe has a happy hour is different. Right? Your partner agrees. They still get to drink on the weekends, but there's some new boundaries and rules. So this is a problem that's identified and said, oh, how about this instead? Oh, my girlfriend always gets drunk on the weekend. Oh, have you talked to her about it? No. How bad's the problem? What are you willing to accept? Right? She works. She's functional. You don't consider her an alcoholic in your realm of the world. So you go, hey, actually, if I'm invited to these things and you don't go to bars, I could be okay with it. That's negotiable. All right, action step. Let me pull this up. Thanks for the feedback, Percy Blue. So you go back. Yeah, you can see that. Action step. Write or type out a list of problems and put them in categories they fit in. So I just put the categories here for you. Negotiable, non-negotiable, acceptable, right? Adaptable is negotiable. So what I mean by that is that you can figure out some kind of thing to overcome that problem. So if you could put them acceptable, non-negotiable, negotiable. And remember, there's some problems that you're like, you know what? I'm being petty about this. I can accept this. You know what? This is a problem, but I can be okay with you drinking, but we have to have some rules and some boundaries set up. Non-negotiable, you got to be honest with what's non-negotiable. Because a lot of times people do non-negotiable problems and they keep running into a brick wall. So write out or type out a list of the problems, put them in categories they fit in. So instead of just saying, she drinks too much and goes out to bars, you'd say, is that negotiable? Is that non-negotiable? Is that acceptable? Now, when you do negotiable, the other person has to feel like it's a problem for them that they want to work on. So negotiable is usually a place that you've tried but hasn't worked. And what you could say is, even if it's non-negotiable or negotiable for you, is it non-negotiable for them? If that's the case, non-negotiable wins. Put it in there. They say, I don't have a drinking problem. I like hanging out with my friends. You have a problem with yourself. That problem doesn't get fixed. You can accept it or reject it. Now, getting into these categories. Make sure you are distinguishing fixable problems as ones that you can solely fix. This is very important. To assume a problem is fixable, but it takes the other person admitting that they agree it's a problem and they agree with finding a solution is not a fixable problem completely. It's incomplete. It's a conversation to have, and if you're already broken up, it's a conversation you already had probably. Correct or not correct? Now, example of this. They have major issues with their childhood. Okay, this comes up a lot. They have major issues with their childhood. Trauma, whatever. abuse. You keep telling them they need therapy, right? Oh, you need therapy. You keep telling them that over and over again. Yet they don't want to do anything about it. Therapy's too expensive. They don't like psychiatrists, whatever. Okay? That's not a fixable problem. And by the way, therapy might not fix it. It's a problem you believe they should work on. You believe they should work on. But they don't want to, nor do they like your solution. At some point, it becomes a non-negotiable problem. So they keep going back to, well, all these problems I have is because of when I was a kid, this, and this. And you're like, well, have you tried therapy? Have you had this? Have you had that? They're like, no, I don't want to. I don't want to. Well, then they don't really want to work on the problem. Or, whenever the thing that's good if you suggest solutions and someone rejects the solution, then you go, all right, well, what's a better idea? Now you get the ball rolling in a solution-based thing. So getting back to these, and I have more of these that I'm going to be doing again and again. Let me pull this up. Let me know if any of you have any questions about this, but that's your action step right there. Think about that. Write or type out a list of problems and put them in categories they fit in. Here's the categories, folks. Negotiable, non-negotiable, acceptable. Okay? Now, I mentioned earlier, fixable. Fixable is negotiable. 100% fixable is on you. Right? So, getting into these things, there's more steps that I'm going to review in the future with these mind maps. So anyone that's watching this live stream, let me know what your first thoughts are these. And really, my reason for this Percy Blue is there isn't a lot of game plans. So a lot of times what I've been noticing on YouTube, there's a lot of the same material being reiterated. Okay. And that's understandable, right? It's totally understandable. So people take something like no contact. They do a 10-minute video about it. It's like no contact, but they're not keeping in mind what's your plan. Because a lot of people are like, okay, so I just do no contact. That's it. And I get where they're coming from. It's like, well, after hearing your story, what are your other options? But really what's coming up again and again is what's the next step? So yeah, it is going to be a game plan. And this is the first part. Write your story out, have a therapist or coach read it, right? And the next part is strain out the problems. You got to strain out the problems from your breakup and identify them as your individual problems. What's happening is YouTube searches for you. They suggest videos to you. And now you create new lanes, new paths, new ideas, and new problems and more complications to your thoughts post-breakup or relationship. And people are coming to me and they have convoluted ideas about what's going on instead of just going to the problems. What's negotiable? What's fixable? What's acceptable? Instead of, well, I know what the problem is. They're a narcissist. That's a label. It's not really identifying what you're going to accept or not accept or negotiate on. And the hardest thing is when people go, I've identified the problems. I'm willing to work on it, but they're not. So that's non-negotiable. Two parties have to negotiate. Yes or no? I know that sounds simplistic, right? So That's where you start. And how many people are doing this? How many people are taking out a piece of paper or typing it out and going, all right, what's acceptable, what's non-acceptable, and what's negotiable? And this is what happens when people get back together. You cheated for me, you stole from me, how about this one that people can forgive but not forget? I saw you on a dating app. I saw you texting someone else. You wrote bad things about me on your Facebook page. So those things, you get back together and it's still a problem. And problems are beyond forgive and forget. You have to build a case on why you accept it. So acceptance could be forgiving, or acceptance could be you reframing the story that, you know what? And think about this when I go back to acceptable stories, acceptable problems. How many people will stay in a marriage, right, for the kids? The man's cheating. They have a big house. They have nice cars. The woman's a stay-at-home mom. That's circumstances. Everyone from the outside is like, oh my God, he's cheating. He's disrespecting. The woman goes, you know what? I'm going to stay in the marriage. I'm going to accept that my husband cheats and has an extra girlfriend because I don't want to lose the house. I don't want to lose the cars, and I want my kids to have a full-time dad. That's acceptable because she's changed the storyline. Do I find that acceptable? It doesn't matter. You make your own individual rules. When you go to YouTube, you'll come across someone that has 10 million views, so you think that they're an authority on the subject, when really they're just an opinion. And then you'll go, wait a minute, maybe I should break up. You need to make your own rules. You need to make your own reasons for accepting or not accepting things. Rye Flint, this has been long-winded. Let me know what you think about these mind maps that I'm going to be using a little bit more, and specifically giving you a game plan, like you just said, Percy Blue. So the next step, once you identify the problems and knowing if they're negotiable, now you have a reason. When you're thinking about, all right, if the person calls me or gets back with me, I know what we need to work on or what they need to work on, and I can stick to that rather than just getting my emotions involved only and just getting back together because we're lonely or we miss intimacy. Because what happens, and I'm going to let you in on a little thing from being a breakup coach for a long time, whether you get most people that get their ex back, a lot of them break up again, because they never fix the problems or the problems resurface. Just look at drinking or drug addicts, right? Someone can quit that for a year and it can come back again. Cheating, someone can do that again, or you never forgave them. Okay. Pull this up. So just I'll pull this one up. Let's see. Four on deck. Let's see if I can. How you been, Percy? So I'm going to give you a quick outline of we got Percy on deck. An outline of some of the steps, series, topic outline. So my plan is to use this mind map to do a 10-part series. Videos will be about 10 to 15 minutes. All right. Well, let me know if you have any issues you want to mention here, and I can help you out with. So right here, let's see if we can make this bigger, right? So you got this 10-part series topics for the outline. So write a detailed story with action step at the end, share with a coach or therapist. The goal is to gain clarity on what happened and why. Where were you truly wrong? Okay? And where you did well but didn't work out. Identify the problems. We got to get this a little bit bigger maybe. Identify the problems. Identify the problems with details and examples. What problems are fixable, acceptable, adaptable, changeable, or non-negotiable, or rejected? Identify your individual issues. Are they fixable? You start with you. Where am I accountable and what are the problems? If you're 350 pounds and you're like, I think she's losing attraction, be honest with yourself. Okay? What do you want from this breakup if everything went right? Great place to be. A lot of people are stuck on, I just want them back. What do you want if everything went right? Well, ideally, I would like her to dress differently and this has been one before for a client, meet up with my family more often for Christmas, for Thanksgiving. She never makes an effort. So these are things that you would come to conclusion of what you want. Next part. No contact and blocking. Why or why not? So this comes up. I do not preach to everyone that you have to do no contact or you have to do blocking. I just had a client 2 or 3 days ago that was in 9 months of no contact. And he broke it, and the ex was receptive. They ended up not working out, but no contact and blocking. Why or why not? I would go through a whole series on a mind map just like this, just talking about that concept alone and deciding how long and if you're going to stick to that. Now, the biggest thing is social media fast, take drugs and alcohol inventory. So if you're on meds, if you're taking drugs, if you're regularly drinking, you need to take inventory of this. What I mean by that is you're in a sensitive place post-breakup. If you're taking drugs, it'll make you more sensitive. If you're taking alcohol or drinking alcohol profusely, it's going to make you more sensitive. Social media fast. Are you social media stalking your ex? It's the biggest problem in 2023 post-breakup. If someone said no contact and blocking, I would say social media fast is bigger deal post-breakup. If they're seeing someone else, if they don't want to be with you, et cetera, you can't keep tabs on them. It's a minefield. Now, this is a big one. And this is something that gets lost in a lot of other YouTube channels and breakup coaches' ideas. Resources and tools for getting through a breakup. Okay? So, actionable items. Change your schedule. Reprogram your mind. So, I have 2 things. Tapping, which is a emotional freedom technique. It's a tapping technique you can use on your own that helps you through your breakup. Okay, that's something that I can teach you. It takes 10 minutes. I could do it with you in a coaching call, and it actually works to bring your anxiety, your worries down. Okay, I've done it with hundreds of clients at this point, and they all go, yeah, that does help. Okay, that's a resource. Because why do you need resources? Because a breakup's going to be hard. You're going to have moments of anxiety. Walking. What do I mean by that? A lot of people aren't aware that the number one thing that you can do for exercise that's easy and attainable anywhere in the world at any location is walking. Okay? Take a walk. Guided meditation. This is something I do. Some people call it hypnotherapy, hypnosis. Guided meditation is a more favorable thing to call it. It's on the internet. There's channels about it. You can get specific guided meditation that helps you through a breakup. This is a resource. Breathing techniques, hot yoga, sauna, ice cold showers. These are things that are resources that help with anxiety, that aren't, hey man, you need to go to the gym. You need to start working on yourself. You need to find your purpose. Those are surface-based advice things that I'm getting tired of hearing. They're not resources. Hey, find your purpose. That can mean 10,000 different things. Hey, be on your purpose. Hey, go to the gym. Not everyone likes the gym. Go for a walk. The tapping technique, it works. Guided meditation, it works. It helps. These are resources that you can tailor to your situation and actually shift your momentum. I've done it. I've done it with clients before. These are action-based resources and tools. They're very important. All right. Understanding relationships and attraction. This would be a part of this series. Some people understand this really well. They've done a lot of research on it. Polarity, feminine, masculine, the list goes on. Some people don't know shit about it. They're late 20s, 29 years old. They've never read a relationship book in their life. They have no clue about it. Post-breakup, this is a great time to learn this stuff. Great time. Great time. And once you learn it, you're like, oh, crap. Well, instead, a lot of people go into finding labels like narcissism or attachment that in a lot of cases are negative labels that they can apply to their partner or their ex that makes them somehow feel better or makes their partner look bad. Understanding attraction and relationships, you might be able to go a little deeper in the sense that, oh, I didn't realize being needy and texting them 100 times a day is unattractive. I didn't realize after they've told me that they don't want to be with me and it's not a time that they want to be in a relationship, that me chasing and calling is highly unattractive. Okay? Understanding relationships and attraction is something, even if you think you know, you should go back over it post-breakup. The next one, trade-offs. This is a big one. Now, if I made a book, which I've talked about it, I'd rather do these mind masks. Trade-offs is one of the number one things. Attraction, great intimacy, but they're annoying. Are you willing to trade off for that? The biggest one, he's rich, but I only get to see him once a month. That's a trade-off. What's your trade-offs in the relationships? A lot of people will trade one thing for another and they'll find it acceptable. Typecasting. This happens in breakups. Okay. They've typecasted you as a loser, a lazy person, a person that is never going to amount to what they want you to amount, and you try to turn it around in one day post-breakup. No, I don't think so. The worst thing you can do is overcompensate your character and who you are. You go 0 to 100. You promise a bunch of things. You go from a computer tech nerd to a Hell's Angel. It's overcompensating. It's not attractive. It won't get your ex back. Showing you changed. Acceptance of rejection is attractive. Now, that's a nice nugget for you to chew on. Okay? I'm going to make that a little bit bigger if I can. Showing you changed, acceptance of rejection, it's attractive. All right, so acceptance of rejection. It's an opportunity when you get your heart handed to you on a plate. If you can accept it, and accept it doesn't mean you're not crying alone at home in the shower. It means that it hurts and you're accepting it, you're going through it. And you're not going to tap them on the shoulder and talk them out of it. It's actually attractive. It's an opportunity. I've said this about when you get rejected to go out with a woman, or if a woman asks out a man, which is completely acceptable, and they say no, and you say, okay, that's actually attractive. You didn't make them feel guilty. You didn't make them feel bad. You didn't call them names. You showed maturity. All right, it's been a while, so that was kind of long-winded. Thanks for the feedback, Riflein. It's been a while. I've got 5 on deck. If any of you want to call in, or you have some specific relationship issues or something you want to talk about, I could drop the invite. And this was just one of those things. This is something I've been working on just to get a little feedback if some of you are watching this later on how to get a game plan. And it could be titled Breakup Game Plan, Breakup Playbook, but action steps are important. So, like I said, if someone wants to join the live stream today and ask some questions and call in, that's completely fine. It's due to attachment theory. In my opinion, at least, I'm an anxious attachment, as I'm sure you are aware, and she's a fearful avoidant. We've been great for 3 months, but we both became activated as of last week, and since then, she doesn't want to see me right now. I want to fix things. You want to call in? I'll let you call in. I mean, you don't need to show your... All right, Riflin, cool. So this is great. Riflin's saying that she wrote out her story, but she's a little embarrassed. Okay. So a couple of things you can do to that. So this is where, all right, you got the thing. And like I said, if you don't want to show the video, we could just do audio only. Let me just put on my headphones. So Riflin, what you could have done is you could have put a different name to it when you sent it in. You could also keep in mind, I'm not sharing this with anyone, but those parts that you're embarrassed about, that's a breakthrough, because that's where you're holding back. That's where you have some gatekeepers, which is another topic I'll talk about in the future. So the parts where you're embarrassed are the biggest problems. But what's really cool, if you talk to the right coach or therapist, which I hope I would be the right one for you, and I'm saying that because you've been on the live stream quite a bit. What's really amazing is if you get to a point where you share something that you feel is embarrassing, and this is where it's different. Give me a moment, Percy. This is where it's different. When you talk to a good coach or a therapist, they're not going to make you feel embarrassed more. They're going to find a way to either receive that information neutral or reframe it into something that you can laugh about. And I remember sharing some personal things that's happened in my own life that are really hard to share. And talking to a good friend and them saying like, wow, that's happened to me before. So I would say that if you wrote your story out, this is where you'd go, well, maybe I don't want to share it on the live stream or on a video, but we can comb through it, me and you. And I assure you by the end of it, you won't be embarrassed, because whatever you're embarrassed about, I've heard or seen worse, and it doesn't bother me. I don't react to it like, oh my God, da, da, da. And once you can negate that embarrassment, now we're getting somewhere, because that embarrassment's a sweet spot on what you need to work on. So if that's the case, that's a good thing. Then you've realized the parts to redline that, like, this is the part that I'm embarrassed about. That's what we got to work through. All right, let me pull this up. Yeah. Okay. Are you there? I don't hear your audio yet. Oh, I got to turn you on. Okay, got it. All right. Percy, go ahead and shoot.
Okay, shoot. So me and this girl, it's been a while since I talked to you, but me and this girl have been seeing each other for about 3 months, coming up on 3 months. Never have had any issues. She's super intelligent, really interesting, and that kind of thing. And I ended up making it official about 2 weeks ago, and which has been the first time I've been that quick into a relationship in a long, long time. But ended up making it official about 2 weeks ago. And then last week, I ended up snapping at her over something really dumb. And just because I was feeling embarrassed at the time, essentially we went to play tennis, and it was the first time I've ever played tennis. And I was just like super embarrassed. I'm a bigger dude. Like, muscular and like really into sports, but at the same time, I just am bigger. So tennis is just not my game.
Sure.
And I was nervous. It was my first time, and it was with her family, so it wasn't just her.
Okay.
And on the tennis court, I'm like, I kind of was jumping for the ball and hitting it, and she kept saying something behind me. Like at first, she was kind of laughing about it, and then I felt like she was getting annoyed that I was doing it, and she ended up saying like, "Why are you jumping for the ball?" And instinctually, I just kind of turned around and I was like, "Shut the fuck up! I don't know what I'm doing. Like, what's going on?" Like that kind of thing. I didn't think it was that big a deal, but I know that I was wrong for doing it, and I almost immediately turned around and was like, "Hey, that was unacceptable. I should not have snapped at you, especially in front of your parents and your sister. It's just not cool." And that kind of made her shell up a little bit. I didn't realize it was that big of an issue until later when we went and she ended up bringing it up and we talked about it. But because of that, she's been a lot more distant. And then I started to learn a little bit about her and her attachment style, which is fearful avoidant. And since then, we had like she's not been that person, but because she feels like she needs to deactivate from the relationship a little bit because she feels like I could not potentially be the one. She's
Because
like,
of that one interaction, because of the one tennis thing.
so that like brought it up. That like brought that up. And then because I felt her pulling away, I got anxious. And so I started being a little bit more like needy than I usually am because I felt insecure in the relationship. I thought she was going to call it off because of that.
Overcompensating. Yeah,
Right.
sure.
Right.
Sure.
And she hadn't seen that side of me in the 3 months that we've been together because I'm a very confident person. But when I started feeling like she was going to break up with me over that, I started trying harder and bringing up the conversation a lot more. And that was just pushing her further and further away. And so now we're in this weird spot where she doesn't necessarily want to see me because she's trying to recharge her or like distance herself. And she's like questioning herself almost. Like there's a difference between like the intuition and what her mind is telling her that she wants, or like, I don't know. I read the entire book on attached literally in a day the other day when I started looking at this stuff. And
Does she agree that did you? Because I know you probably told her about this attachment theory. Does she agree that's true about her?
yeah, so she had taken this test last year actually, and she had brought up the fact that she's a fearful avoidant or like prior to this.
Okay.
And I was like, "Oh, well, I'm an anxious attached," which sucks because it's a never-ending cycle. But I recognize a lot of that stuff, and I'm doing like cognitive behavioral therapy and stuff like that
Uh-huh.
to try and like tame my anxieties. But yeah, it set it off, and so now we're in that weird spot where she doesn't want to see me, but she's going out of her way to try and see me. But every time she sees me, her mind is telling her there's something new that I don't like about him. There's something new that I don't like about him. And so she's
How
backing
do
off
you know that? How do you know that her mind's saying that?
because we've had conversations about it. We're talking about it actively, trying to figure it out. But at the
Do you?
same time, oh,
All
go
right.
ahead.
Do you think that I'm listening. Um, do you think that knowing these attachment theories is helping you?
I think to some degree, knowing about it and knowing why I'm reacting the way I am is helpful.
Okay.
But I'm really bad about trusting people. And so when she's telling me these things, it's like I'm trying to trust that she's meaning what she's saying. But because she and I are so different, as in if she has to back away to go back to equilibrium and I have to be closer to reach equilibrium or like security in the relationship, then I don't know like how to navigate the situation.
I mean, is there certain situations where the attachment theory wouldn't be true?
Uh, like, like for example, what?
Um. All right. So this is where sometimes you can get not. I'm not saying specifically you, but I've had clients in the past that they'll get. Well, she's a fearful avoidant. I'm an anxious attachment. So we're this, but there's got to be certain cases where that doesn't apply. So because you in 24 hours and 1 year, there's got to be situations where like, oh, that wasn't what a fearful avoidant would do. That's
I don't know, because I haven't seen this side of her since we started dating either. Which is why like that whole interaction with me kind of snapping at her, it made her back off because she got scared of she was like, maybe this is an emotionally abusive relationship. Maybe it could turn into something like that, which I kind of understand because she's had stuff in the past that's like, some sort of emotional abuse, and she doesn't want to make that same mistake. But I don't know. I know me, and I know that I'm not that person.
yeah, no, and
But
you've done, and
but
like
it's fresh, it's new, and
you've literally, we've done some work together. You've done a lot of work. Like you've come a
yeah,
long ways. What
100%.
happens? What happens? And like I said, you probably wouldn't handle this situation the same a year, 2 years, 3 years ago. Like
Oh,
you've
definitely
done
not.
growth. The only thing is with, like I said, I'm not anti-attachment theory. I just don't like when it starts to dominate the outlook, where you're just like, this is what it is, because it's a theory. It's not absolute truth. So
Right.
so the part where some things can apply, you start playing, not you specifically, but it
Right.
starts being like, well, because she's this. Well, the problem was like you lost your cool at tennis. Well, why did you lose your cool? Because you were embarrassed because her family was there and you're not really good at tennis,
Mm-hmm.
right? And then if you went a surface deeper, maybe also like when you were younger, you weren't great at some sports like that. So it's like a sensitive thing. Like if you keep
Right.
going deeper with it, right? Where as if I mean, and the thing is, you apologize right after. That's the biggest thing you can do,
Right.
right? Like do you, like when you get older, it's like when you're younger, it's like fuck that, I'm not going to apologize, or like what, you're going to hold your ground, you're going to be
Sure.
stubborn or whatever. You're like, no, like I'm sorry, and during that time, you're like, I noticed that I overcompensated or got anxious,
Mm-hmm.
however you want to frame that. I'm with you, and that's something that happens to a lot of men and women. So getting back to the problem at hand is now this has opened up like all these other things.
Yeah,
Has there been
it's brought
anything
up
else
like
that come up
her.
to you?
Sorry.
Has it? I mean, that I like that you brought up a specific thing
Yeah.
that applies, because that's what I'm about. And then how is that blowing up or blooming into more stuff? Why
Yeah. So
couldn't she
basically,
accept?
the theory is when I get nervous of being abandoned, I get anxious. That's where
Mm,
mine is deep rooted in like my abandonment issues. Hers is the same way, but she wants to, like, she's learned over time that she can only rely on herself, and so she backs away when she fears that she'll be abandoned or hurt or something like that. So other examples of this is like, um, when we have seen each other over the last few days, she's going out of her way to try and see me because she's trying to meet my needs as well, which I think is awesome because I know a lot of people wouldn't be that person that goes against your nervous system. But she's going out of her way to do that. I'm going out of my way to like give her space. But when we are back to seeing each other, um, one little thing will set her off and she'll pull away. For example, she stayed the night the other night after not staying for over a week, and like we were cuddling in the morning, and I ended up brushing her neck on accident, and she pulled away immediately. For some reason, that set her off. And then it was like after that, she was just picking things that she didn't like about me throughout the day. So she didn't like the way I was driving later in the day. And so she's telling herself, this, I can't be happy in this relationship because he's driving this way. Surely there's somebody else out there that doesn't drive this way. Then she's picking on me at lunch because she got a cocktail and I wanted to get a cocktail too. But she was like, no, he doesn't need to get a cocktail because he's going to be driving later. And
She said this out loud.
we talked about it later in the day. Yeah.
Okay, I'm listening.
Yeah.
I'm listening. Go ahead.
So like that kind of thing happened. And so the rest of the day, because she couldn't get away from me because we're spending the day together, she can't recharge. And so she's just picking these little things. And so she keeps comparing me to like the one, which is like her idea. It's in my attached book there. It's one of
I'm
the ways
listening.
that they deactivate is they picture the one and they compare me to the one. If there's these things that she doesn't like, then maybe he's not the one. maybe there's someone else out there that's better. And I can recognize that I've done that in the past too, but I also she's trying to logically look at it as well. So she's like, I like all these things about you. I don't know why I'm getting like the ick from like these certain situations just because I feel like I want to like pull away or like go home and not see you this day. Or we had talked about it and she was like, if I could do this exactly how I want to, I would go home, not talk to you for a while, and then eventually I'd come back around. That's how she wants to handle it, but she's also trying to meet my needs, which is I like to talk. I feel like my anxiety goes down when she texts me or like whatever.
Okay. All right. So one of the cool things about what you just said, and I was thinking in my head, regardless of the fearful, avoidant, and those things, because I'm with you. And when people talk about attachment theory, they sometimes think I'm against it. I just like when you clarify your interpretation of it.
Sure.
So like I like to not play dumb, but not be an expert. You just did a lot of reading on it. You got more on it right now in your head than I do, and I want to know how you're interpreting it. And that's okay.
I think that's
right?
also the cognitive behavioral therapy that I'm doing too, because
I have a client that's
I went and got this book called The Anti-Anxiety Notebook.
okay.
I just got it at Barnes and Noble. I just saw it and I was like, since I'm dealing with anxiety right now, I'm going to try it. So it basically gives you 5 steps, which is what happened. So you describe the situation. What's going on through your mind. So you describe your thoughts. What emotions are you feeling? And then you'll note the intensity of those emotions.
Good. I like that.
Yeah. What thought patterns are you recognizing? So circle any of your own or write your own. And it's like all or nothing, blaming others, catastrophizing, emotional reasoning, fortune telling, labeling, that kind of stuff. And then how can you think about the situation differently? So you're supposed to challenge your thoughts, right? So tonight, I'll give you a specific example because this happened just a little while ago. And I ended up just grabbing this notebook and writing it down.
Great. I like that.
Me and her were texting. I went to the gym and I asked her if she wanted to talk on the phone after the gym. And she said, sure, text me when you're done. So I texted her. We kind of texted for the next hour and a half, but she never called me. And then she ended up texting me that she wanted to call me, but she was busy, and she would talk to me in the morning. She just has to get up early for work and that kind of thing. For me, my anxiety kind of sparked from that. And so for my what happened part, I said, she told me we'd talk after I worked out. And then it goes on to what is going on through your mind. And I listed these exact things. That instead of talking to me, she spent her night talking to someone else, maybe a boy or someone else. 2, she wanted to fill her time doing things she considered more important. So I'm feeling neglected, abandoned, or insufficient for her tonight. I once again feel as though I don't matter as much to her as she says I do, or as much as she matters to me. My thought patterns that I'm recognizing are I'm catastrophizing the situation by saying, because she doesn't want to talk to me tonight on the phone, that she just doesn't like me. And I'm mind reading, pretending like I know what she's thinking when she hasn't said any of this stuff. And I'm like, if she doesn't talk to me, she doesn't care about me kind of situation. So the way I'm trying to challenge my thoughts tonight about it is maybe she actually is or was busy. She did mention to me the other day that she wants to clean her house or her room. So maybe she spent her time doing that instead of talking to me. She may still be taking some time away from me because she feels overwhelmed by her emotions and she's scared to let me in. And then I wrote at the end, even though I feel hurt, I'm okay.
So you didn't share all that with her. You're just sharing it with me.
I'm just sharing it with you. It's just something I wrote in my little notebook.
Thank you. And I think that that's a great notebook. I wasn't aware of that. I like to me, the biggest thing we can do is reshape our perspective. It's something that I don't want to reshape it for you.
Right.
But you just what you just did. Yeah. She could have been busy with something, whatever your perspective or your idea was of what she was doing wasn't completely accurate because you don't know.
I don't know. She hasn't told me. And one of the things that she told me the other day, which really has stuck with me over the last few days, is she says, it's not your responsibility to figure out what I'm thinking. If there's a problem, she'll bring the problem to me. And so I just have to trust that there's no problem tonight and that she was just busy, even though she's at home, but maybe she was busy cleaning her room or talking to her sister, or she could have been doing anything else. But I'm catastrophizing in my mind, thinking she's talking to another boy. Something else is going on. That's just my anxiety.
And you're being, and what I like about it, you're being specific. So you're not going, oh, she's a fearful avoidant. You're picking out so like I said, this is where sometimes when people are doing the therapy and the avoidant thing, they just, my problem is they stick to that.
Yeah. I mean, but
you went below that and you're like, all right, these are the things that are, these are the little problems that are like, she could be talking to someone. All right, well, let's get to that too. Now you have this other thing about that. So that's great that you
I can really only control how I'm feeling, or like whatever she's got going on is her concern. It's not my responsibility to fix, like she said. But my anxiety is my problem, and I need to work on my anxiety. So I'm going to continue doing the work over here, whether it's for her as my partner or a future partner. I'm trying to handle this for myself because I self-sabotage all the time due to this crap. So I'm just trying to get better on my side, but it is a sticky situation. Like, I don't know how to handle this. I'm just kind of fumbling through it right now.
Well, what you just described to me with that book, that notebook, I really like that. It's kind of ironic because me doing these mind maps and this action step, I plan to come out with like a notebook with just simple questions because it's action based. And what you just did was like, you'll have to send me the name of that book again. And I think that's great because that gets you doing something and then reframing or giving you a different perspective that you're not locked in.
Right.
And it was funny when you told me that what she had suggested, like, I just need to go home. I forgot how you framed it. Like, I just need to go home and be alone for a little bit.
Right.
I was thinking that in my head while you were talking, like, well, I think she just needs to go home and unwind and give her the space to be pouty for a minute or upset with you.
Yeah.
And then the fact that you immediately apologized and were accountable rather than, like,
and well, she says that she recognizes that the problem really is her committal issues. She has a hard time committing to anything, not just to me, but to like things in her life in general. So her job or like what she wants to do for a passion or a hobby or like whatever. And I'm over here taking it super personally because it's me, and it's kind of hard not to take that personally. But she's also just telling me, like, I have this problem with my job. Like, I don't know if I want to keep this job or if I want to do something else. She tried 2 different things in college that she wanted to do before, but she fears that she's making the wrong decision. And that's what's kind of guiding her life. And she's also telling me that she's on the side challenging those thoughts when she's at home alone doing that stuff, because she has to work on her emotions herself too. It's hard for me to like deal with that because I also like am a proof person. I would love to be like, yeah, oh, I see you working on that problem, but I have to just trust that she's at home working.
It's ongoing, right? So I would say that someone like that she's a couple years younger than you.
Yeah, she's about 3 years younger than me.
Okay, so early 20s, if you don't want to say the exact age. Early 20s, correct?
Under yeah.
25, yeah. You got a few more years, and 3 years ago you were different.
Oh my gosh, just a year ago I was different.
I know, because I know you. Yeah, because we've done some work together in a good way.
Yes,
in a good way.
Yeah,
right? Got through some things that were way worse than maybe you are now, and you're kind of give yourself credit. You're sorting through this. You're looking for solutions. You're not. It's not like you're in the middle of the ocean drowning. Right now, you got a boat. You got some ideas. You got some resources.
I'm a little bit more self-aware.
Yeah, which is big. Like,
that's
even the
huge.
way you're talking about it. Yeah. So one thing that I would say right off the bat, if that's the way she is with the fearful avoidant and the commitment, this might not seem, instead of trying to suggest how to work on that or this or that, go with it a little bit more if it's going to work. So, for example, don't put her in positions where she has to commit. If that's not something she's comfortable with, it, you're already together. Where she's gonna, like, when you guys go out and have a good time and play tennis, or you guys go out and have food or do things like that, then probably she's gonna want it to be a little bit more loose, less organized, less committal. So over time, though, if like you're at 3 months now, you said, and you guys are Got
We've
good
been
attraction, good
yeah,
connection.
we've been seeing each other for about 3 months. We started dating in late April. Oh, so it's been a little bit longer than 2 weeks. It's been about 3-ish weeks since we started dating a fish, or like we made it into a relationship kind of thing.
Well, all right. So keep in mind this other part to it. Just putting aside the avoidant and the behavior, you're still learning each other. So
Yep.
like, even though you're together, like you've dated, you have strong feelings. This is a good girlfriend, and then you have. And the interesting thing about this, because I know
Mm-hmm.
you've got a lot of knowledge that you've gained over the last 3 or 4 years of dating, relationship dynamics, and all that stuff. So you're putting it to work. So you're a
Yep.
different person than you were before. You're more self-aware, like you said, more in the moment. So that's different. So you're filtering for different things now. But keep in mind, one of the best things I could tell you is, in the next 3 months or 6 months, you're better at dating. You're
Yeah.
better at, and you guys could find in the next 6 months, 7 months that you're not compatible or things are not working. And that's okay also,
Right.
because you're
Right.
not married. You haven't been together 4 years. It might just be that,
Yeah,
these things aren't working. You're learning each other right now.
right.
And
We
being,
both said that it's probably better that we learned this about each other now than if we were
yeah,
dating 2 years and then it happens and then we're like, what? Who is this person I'm dating?
yeah. And like some people, especially younger people, like 7 months, like, oh yeah. It's like, well, sometimes at 7 months, someone does something or something comes up totally out of the character you thought they were. And you're
Right.
like, what the, well, you didn't know them that well. And that doesn't mean you're an idiot or lying. Like 6 months, 7 months, let's say you work with people or go to school with people. Sometimes after a year, they do something. You're like, wow, I didn't know you were like that.
Well,
Or
yeah, I think that that's kind of what she was thinking when it first when I like snapped at her, because she had never seen me angry and let alone snap at her. And it just kind of happened, and it kind of had her asking herself questions like, whoa, and it kind of threw her out of the honeymoon phase, she said, because everything was all good. We've gone on trips together already, like traveling and stuff. We went kayaking a few weeks ago, and that was great
nice.
fun. Yeah. But it was all good, happy, healthy. And then I snapped at her and she got to see a little bit of a darker side to me, which is just my
Well, dude,
you
everyone
know.
loses their cool.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I'm trying not to
And you
beat
didn't
myself up
cross,
about it, but
yeah, you didn't cross like the line. You didn't throw the racket
yeah.
at her head or something.
Oh no. Oh no.
Oh, no, I know. I'm just saying, like, you could have, so what I'm saying is you're going to lose your cool at some point,
Yeah. Yeah.
raise your voice or do those kinds of things.
But
And
I'm trying to
so,
be thoughtful of her past traumas as well. I don't know what they are specifically. We have not talked about that kind of thing. But
well, if she's a fearful avoidant, maybe she doesn't want to talk about it yet. Like I said, you're still, even though you're
right.
doing really well, you're still learning each other. You still take some time. Don't be in a rush. And what can happen, I think, for some people, especially because me being from a different generation, my 20s, we never knew about avoidant. We didn't know about all this material that you get online about attraction. Like it
Sure.
just wasn't as. Sometimes you get into this rabbit hole and you start talking about this stuff and getting away from having fun, getting
Yeah.
away from what got you guys together. Like, share your crap or your issues for your therapist. That's what you're paying them for.
Yeah.
If
100%.
what happens sometimes when you get in the relationship, and I just had someone last week, really good guy, and he's same as you. He's going to a behavioral therapist, and they're doing a lot of attachment stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and he's really into that, and he's really getting a lot out of it. He's really, but he's also imposing it a little bit onto
Mm-hmm.
her,
Mm-hmm.
and she's not going to the same therapist or at the same place.
Right. I
And
mean, this is stuff for me to work on, not necessarily her to work on.
yeah, so I'm saying that she's going to come at it from a different angle, and so you never want to be in a situation where, I don't think you do this so much, but where you're lecturing, like you
Yeah.
should be doing what I'm doing, and I've realized all these things about avoiding. You guys want to have a good time, and
Right.
like I said, what she said, as simplistic as it sounds, like, wow, I could have just gone home and kind of unwound that a little bit more.
Yeah,
Like,
that's what she's trying to do right now, and I'm just trying to let it happen. I'm over here like, let me just go and work out by myself tonight, and maybe go see a movie by myself tonight, or like just do stuff with like by myself.
Yep. Or, I mean, it doesn't necessarily have to be, your friends or your family members. It's
Yeah,
like
yeah.
you really get down to, it's like I mentioned in this mind map today, like realize you have way more resources out of your problems than you think. It's like,
Right.
oh, well, then I have to go to the movies alone. Not really.
No, I could go with
You
other
can go
people. I
with a
could go with
family member or
yeah.
something. You know what I mean? Like, so
But more
when you,
so like I when I get anxious, I get really focused on the relationship. I stop doing what I want to do. Like I stop going to the gym, I stop hanging out with friends, I stop thinking about external things and I get really hyper focused on the relationship. And that's what I'm trying to work on is like, okay, I need to back up too because I'm putting way too much into this and she's not wanting any of this. She's a very independent person. So she is feeling overwhelmed or like I'm going to take her freedom away if we do this relationship or like that kind of thing because I'm getting super hyper focused on the relationship.
hmm.
So I need to back up and give her that space right now.
So when you feel that,
Hmm.
'cause you can feel it like boiling water, right? Like it's gaining momentum, and now
Hmm.
you're deeper and deeper and more focused, and you're trying to figure out an answer to an uncertain thing in her mind that you can't figure out. So it's an
Right.
open loop. So when you're in that mode, if you're like, I can't go to the gym, then like I said, I've told people this before, go for a walk around your block, take a cold shower, do something to calm you down. The tapping thing really works
Yeah.
to get you to baseline.
Right.
Not to make you happy or fix you, just so the water's not boiling anymore and you can get it to room temperature.
Yeah,
So now you can
it's almost like a
calm down.
snowball kind of effect where I'm trying to catch myself as I'm tumbling when with my anxiety, and then like I have to do something to like get a handhold or something just to chill for a second. Because if I don't, I do get stuck in those thought loops and stuff like that.
So when you get in the thought loop, develop a new resource where you're like, all right, when this happens, for me, when I've had issues before, I go for a hike, I go for a walk. That's something I do. That's why I recommend it because you can do it anywhere. Does it
Right.
fix it? No, but it helps me not matriculate it and go crazy sitting on the couch.
Yeah.
But all right, I'm not going to sit here and think about it. I'm going to go for a walk and listen to my music.
Yeah,
Well,
I've had to just deactivate from my phone for a little bit because I'll
that's a
catch
big deal.
myself kind of sitting around waiting for her text message, whether I'm on Instagram or scrolling TikTok or whatever. It's kind of like I've got the hand in my or I've got
And
the phone in my hand just waiting.
it's great that you notice that because I think with your generation, what it is like you get every answer you need all the time.
Yeah.
So, with the internet, right? So like everyone's susceptible to like, well, I can figure this out. Even going on YouTube and figuring out relationship issues, it's like, right? Like you're getting answers. So like when there is an uncertain moment with your girlfriend or something like that, and there's not an app or there's not a website that's going to be specific to your girlfriend, you kind of keep looking for things, and you can't figure it out and you're used to getting answers.
Right.
So one of the biggest things is with that tapping technique that I teach is like, even though I don't know right now, I'm okay. I
Right.
accept
Right.
it. I know that I'm going to give her some time and some space and we'll see what happens. And I've been through this before, but I'm okay. So just even it out.
Yeah. I kind of have
And
to ground myself with the we'll see like statement. Um,
right.
because if I get my hopes up, then I get really upset when things don't go my way. But if I continue to ground myself with like a, we'll see, like whichever way this goes, I'm not banking on it, but like I am hopeful of like it has a nice outcome. I
I'll be
mean,
okay regardless. Yeah.
yeah,
Like
even
I'll
those
see.
negative things have panned out to be really good.
Exactly. Exactly. Sometimes the worst things that happen to us grow into the best things. They make the best songs, right? So
Right.
that's a great thing to come back to. If that's a statement for you, we'll see. And then go on a walk and listen to your music or do something that, like you said, I can't get into the gym. All right, well then alternatively do something that makes you, the reason why walks and runs or hikes work really well is because you have to be present.
Yeah. Yeah.
You
The
don't want to get hit by a
mindfulness
car.
stuff. Yeah, for sure. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That make
So
my problems a lot worse.
yeah. So even though your mind will be running on your girlfriend, it won't be as intense as if you're on your couch and
Right.
then you're on YouTube. And then the problem with YouTube right now, and I'm on YouTube, is that there's just so many different viewpoints. And then you get one that grabs you but
Mhm.
is conflicting or not congruent with your situation. And now you've created another, like these mind maps, you've created a subtopic and a subprop, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
that's why I'm going to start doing a 10-part series on some of these things with an action step and tell people just follow this. If it's not, I'm not saying it's the answer to everything, but you got to follow something that's a little bit more congruent, because certain people, you can out research this thing and then you're just not sure about anything of anything. And I'm just getting a lot of clients right now that are really mixed up and wanting this secure answer, and then they attach to something ironically as attachment theory.
Yeah.
And then they base everything on that. And it's not bad. It's not a bad thing. It's just, it's not going to be the answer to everything either, because some of the things the person does might not line up with those too.
Yeah,
Right.
try not to get too stuck on that kind of thing just because I have noticed that. Like, I mean, I had gone through a pretty nasty breakup last year and I was looking for answers and I was like getting really I was making everything very personable that I was
Mhm.
watching. And it wasn't necessarily like factual, but I was like
Mhm.
taking it as more or less fact, and things didn't work out, but like I was getting, yeah, like I said, like way too personable about it.
And look at, you overcame that one,
Mhm.
which was tough, which was
Yep.
tough. But like the cool thing about, well, the thing about breakups or those kinds of things, you're going to get stronger from it. You're never going to have the same reaction again, because it's going to be a different dynamic. And
Yep.
usually, unless a lot of people that do drugs and alcohol or something like that and never face their problem,
Mhm.
part of the hardest part is you're facing this, the tennis thing. You could have just like avoided it. You could have avoided it, made an excuse. You could have not brought it up again right
Yeah.
away. You confronted it. So that makes it difficult, because you're confronting it right away. You're looking for the solutions right away. And like you said, we'll see. That's a good thing to come back to, because um, her taking some time away and then you being able to respect that and note that, that could be attractive to her. Like knowing that, and Truth of Love, who follows attachment theory pretty closely, I believe, he just said dating avoidance is hard. Rationalization is a big for avoidance. They can't commit, so they just justify the emotion that is fueled by fear. Um,
Mhm.
so yeah, that can be true. And just know that you're still learning each other, and you're allowed to, if something's, the best thing that I've learned doing this work is like, if you don't line up, sometimes you're not going to line up long term. So, it's not because you failed or you got pissed at a tennis match, because there's other women that would have been like, it's cool.
Right.
There's some other chicks that would have laughed at you.
Yeah, they would've been like, "What the heck was that?"
Yeah, like I've been around friends. I'm one of those people that I don't get really amped up too much, but when I play basketball, I have like a side of myself that I'm like, God, why do I get so
Right.
upset?
Right.
I
I'm
get competitive.
competitive, so, like, yeah, being bad at something is super infuriating to me, and she's good at everything, dude. She beats me at everything, and so I just felt stupid, and it just came out in a negative way, which looking back, like, I would handle that situation different. First, I'd communicate
But
that
like I
it
said,
didn't.
what's interesting to look at it, right?
Yeah.
There's plenty of people that would have, there's a girlfriend out there that would have laughed at you and
Right.
been like, because she knows you're not going to carry that.
Right.
So you're adapting to her, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you were completely wrong in that moment. You just had a 5-minute moment where you lost your cool. And you know what? That happens to human beings. And like I said, I've had where I've been around friends, or I've had girlfriends where they like lose it. And I'm like, what's wrong?
Yeah.
It's like,
I have too,
what's
but
wrong with
yeah.
you? It's like, um, and so, like I said, that's situational, and it's not something to like, well, I shouldn't have been that way. No, in the moment, that's what it was. And you know what? Like, if you want to break the ice next time, you go, I want to play tennis with you again, just one on one, not with your family there, though. Maybe
Yeah.
you can go with it rather than go against it.
Right, right. I mean, I still would go and play again. Like her sister, when we were walking off, she was like, "You got to come back and play with us again." And I was like, "Yeah, I want to. I just, I
Is it
like,
because even the parents, they might have, and you know what? We never have a video on us. We have so many videos all the time, but when you do that action, you might be interpreting it worse than it is. But if the parents were like, "Oh yeah, he lost his cool during 10," they might think it
yeah."
was
Her
insult.
mom was like, "Yeah, no, just don't get frustrated. We know you're new. It's fine. Everybody has like a hard time hitting the ball when they first start." And I was like, "Yeah, but she took it a different way, and I can't control how she takes it." But that she said is you know, resolved and it's fine. But now we've got the just anxious and this thing going on, and I'm just trying to figure that out.
We'll just continue to go on these nice, good dates and learn each other along the way. And I would say that one of the things that's changed with all the therapy that's done and all the information out there is sometimes we can make these issues bigger than they are.
Right. Right.
So obviously post breakup, when you're at ground zero, research and trying to figure things out is big. But like when you're in the middle of the breakup, it's about the tennis match more than if you make it like, oh, we're these avoidance, we're this, and then like we needed, like it'll just matriculate to get bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger.
Sure.
And just go on dates. And then when she said that thing about taking your time, you dealt with that. It wasn't easy, but you just told me like, I caught myself. That's a
Yeah.
big step. So like, if you ever start meditating or taking time away, and that's what'll help with your anxiety over everything else. And everyone has trouble with meditation for obvious reasons,
Right.
but that's exactly what happens.
Yeah.
Is that you start catching yourself instead of impulsively acting on old programs.
100%. And that's one of the things that anxiety is really like, I'm really bad at acting impulsively because it comes across as very personal or like whatever. And tonight, for example, when she's doing her thing, the first thought was, she's at home in her room. What could she be doing that is like she's busy? But then I'm like, I, in that book that I read, is talking about for anxious people, they're really good at recognizing that something's wrong, but they're also really bad about recognize or like over analyzing it and thinking something's wrong when it's actually not. So if you take a step back and sit with it for a second, you'll be a lot more accurate on guessing if something's wrong or not. And you'll almost have a superpower because of how hypersensitive you are. But I really have to practice taking a step back before I react to something, because that is what will sabotage stuff.
Well, this is the first part of it, right? Like if you start going to the gym, you don't get buff in a day, right? So like this is you're same with, that's why people don't stick with meditation. It's hard to see the results.
Yeah.
But then when you start seeing them, you're like, oh shit. I used to scream and yell at that guy that cut in front of me in traffic, and all of a sudden I went, yeah, it's not worth it today. But I saw myself reacting that way before. You're just slowing down your process. And so when you're like, I caught myself, that's progress for you and learning you. And now just don't get into that situation where you've read this book and you're sharing it with her, and you're sharing it with her rather than imposing like, yeah, this is how you are.
Yeah, so I didn't we both talked about it, and I was like, if you're interested in reading this book, I have this book. It could help with our relationship. And she took it, and I'm trusting that she'll read it and do her part. But it's not my responsibility to make her do it either. And I'm not trying to dictate what she is or how she should act or anything like that. It's just kind of like, this is here for you if you want it, kind of thing.
And if she didn't, it wouldn't ruin things. So yeah, I think you're in a really good position. You're growing from this. You're working on it. You've done things. You're better than you've ever been with women in relationships. And so, knowing that about you with the anxiousness and those kinds of things, you're getting better at it. And this is just like your little test in between. And regardless of what happens with her, it's maybe not what you want to hear, you're going to be okay, and you're going to still get better at this stuff. And
yeah, so, I mean, that's why I'm taking control of it now, because even if I don't end up with her, I want to have this in control for the next person I'm with, if it comes to that, because this has been a reoccurring thing in my life that I had not recognized until recently. And I recognized it in my last 2 relationships, but like now I'm like, okay, I got a game plan of what I can do to work on it, because before I was just like, oh, I'm just this person, like this is how I am and there's nothing I can do about it. But like I'm actively practicing and being proactive about changing, and not just for my partner but for myself, because I hate feeling anxious. It is the worst feeling ever. It just feels like a constant gut punch and it doesn't go away. But like when I take time to journal and detach from my thoughts when I'm journaling. I hate journaling, but I do it. Like I'm actively trying to work on
So
your
all right.
mindfulness and
So
stuff.
that's exactly what I said about the resource thing.
Yeah.
So like that's one thing you can do, but maybe you can provide, like I said, going for a walk and listening to music. Fine.
Yep. I do
You're
that. I
developing new
meditate.
resources.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, so those are things that are countering that anxiousness rather than I hate being anxious. How am I going to get through this? Like,
Right.
how am I going to counter it? And just realizing that you're not the only one. People get anxious about different things.
Right.
Right. It's like I was a teacher for years. I taught public speaking. So I had a lot of students. Like public speaking is a big thing that's hard for kids to get in front of the class. Right. Obviously I don't have a problem. I've been a teacher for a year. It's a form of public speaking. What you want to hear? What's crazy? I've been in situations where I had to do a talk or something and it was a different crowd than the students. And I was like, oh, this feels, and you could feel the, like there was other teacher. It was just different. I went, I haven't felt it. Like I feel confident, so situations can create different levels of anxiousness. And the fact that you are someone that can get in front of a group of people and sing, that would make me a little anxious. You know what I mean? So that's where I get into the part where it's not fixed when you get into this attachment thing, that there's some walks of your life that situations, because of your past experiences, you can reshape that. So it's not so rigid.
Yeah, 100%. Also, by the way, I do get anxious singing in front of people.
But you overcome it.
Yeah, I gotta face it, whatever. Like,
so that's another
do.
thing that's another thing is some people are motivated by consequences, right? Like the reason why you wouldn't speed is because you don't want to get a ticket.
True.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So when I go back to California, because the rules and the laws are so much more strict and expensive.
Yep.
Right? I'll drive with friends and they're like, wow. And I'm like, I don't want to get a ticket while I'm home. It's like 300, right? It's like 300. That's other people I know, they speed.
Yep.
Right? They don't give a fuck. Like the consequence isn't high enough to them. Now, if they got 3 tickets and they got their license, you know what I mean? So this is what motivates people's behavior too, is if you've been, this idea of risk and reward, you've sung enough with enough rewards that like I'm going to do it.
Yeah.
Anyways, even though I'm a little bit anxious. And so with your relationship right now, when you get these anxious moments, if you can get through a couple of those times where you used to over text, call, or ask needy questions, right? If you can get through those enough times, now you're going to rebuild that muscle in your head. You know what? We'll see.
Yep.
I like that statement. We'll see.
Exactly.
We'll see.
Yeah.
Like come back to that if that helps you. Like in my life now, I do a lot of tapping with different clients about I'm okay, right? Sometimes now I go, I'm okay when I have a problem.
Yeah. I mean, that's kind of why I wrote it at the end of my journal, or like that entry too, because that's a statement that I've started using a lot too. Like, even though I feel hurt, or even though this sucks, I'm okay. I'll make it through. It
helps.
Yeah.
It helps, right? Because the alternative to that is leaving that open loop or something, and you can vibe with like, I'm okay. Like you can set yourself back from that. So like, just keep in mind that whatever's happening in this relationship, you used to take a lot of the blame of you doing something wrong or you need to make the right move. And this has to do with people that are intelligent or research based. Like there's got to be an answer.
Yeah.
It's like, no, some of my clients, I go through all their stuff and I'm like, actually, you're doing the right things here. This is just in a good relationship for you. Or people sometimes are not seeing the other person's role in it. In this particular case, I don't feel like she's got a bad one, but you know what I mean? They're like, it's all me.
Right.
It's It's not necessarily always that. So this is a good look at this for yourself. Is like you're doing good with this. You're also in real time catching yourself doing something that you would have done before impulsively as part of your program, as part of your habitual way of dealing with things. And now you're going, wait, let me journal, even though I fucking hate journaling.
I'm just bad at it. Like I wrote in my journal, I'm bad at this.
Journaling. No one's grading it. There's no grammar. There's no.
Yeah. It's just for me to like write it down so I detach from my thoughts a little bit.
Yeah, and get it out of your head. Yeah. So like if you the other alternative to that is if you like audio, then put it on some kind of recording or something. But you're developing a new thing to do rather than over text or call or, and then if you don't like I said, journaling, then find a different one. There's other things to do. I mean, like the walking and listening to music, like going through the tapping, all those things help you come down from it. And then once you get over that, you're like, I can do this again.
Yeah. Walking's a great one. Like I walk pretty much every day.
And it's doable anywhere. It's doable with music. And then it just, as soon as that mouse wheel starts entering and you start getting worried about that, all right, let me do that. And I'm allowed to think about it while I walk, and it just won't be as intense.
Yeah. I mean, there's a lot of internal dialogue that you have when you're walking, and that can be great for getting over it too. I've noticed that.
What's ironic about walking is there's something, you might already know this, EMDR is bilateral stimulation. So EMDR, it's funny when I first started learning about this, bilateral stimulation, so it can be done with sound, like dun, 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 right? It can be done with tapping. It could be done, there's bilateral beats they use. It can be done with tapping on each side of your body while you're you can look up EMDR, and there's a really good example of it from a therapist that does it, and it's very simplistic. So you're going like this, tapping each side of your body, talking about your therapy or your problem, and then they stop you, and then they restart you. What's interesting is walking's bilateral.
Oh, yeah, because you're using both sides of your body, kind of thing, or like
Think to me. So when you're going through that thought process, you're tapping on both sides of that too.
Yeah,
so it's
that makes sense.
Yeah, so it's kind of interesting. I mean, they wouldn't say that because that would be any of these therapies. They don't want anything simplistic to get in the way.
Yeah, of course not.
It would take away credibility from the difficulties of EMDR that you can only learn in one place. But there's bilateral stimulation beats on YouTube that you can listen to that'll calm you down too. Like if you really like music, listen to the sound healing baths. Like with the Tibetan bowls and stuff. Yeah. That might be something that you really would relax.
They've got like the binaural soundscape kind of things and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So that's EMDR is a form of that, right? With the tapping and stuff. So it's kind of interesting. All right. Well, good. I'm glad you called in and we could touch base on that. And man, your progress is great, bro. Like you're not overthinking this. You're trying to figure things out, and you're being accountable.
Right.
And you're not taking all the blame. You're doing your work, and you're getting better and better at this. So I'm happy for you, bud. And like I said, keep in mind you guys are still learning each other.
Yeah, I mean it's early, so this was bound to happen at like some point. So,
and everyone gets taken to, when you're with a partner that is an uncomfortable position, or I remember like early when I was in my 20s, like first time I went to sushi with someone. When I was a kid, my parents, I never had sushi.
Yeah, I didn't either until recently.
So they were like, "Oh, I love sushi." I just felt so, I wouldn't care now.
Yeah.
And then the chopsticks came, and then the food looked really foreign to me. Like I didn't know how to. I don't know if I could eat raw fish. It was just so uncomfortable. I like knocked over a drink.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, it was just, I don't want to use chopsticks. Can I use a fork, please? We're going to, and now it'd be fine. It's just uncomfortable because it's unfamiliar.
It's new. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
And
I was like,
so
this is bound to happen sooner or later in our relationship. Let's figure out what we need now rather than being completely thrown for a loop even further down the road and then being like, who is this person? I don't recognize this person at
and,
all.
and like I said, go with it. Play tennis again.
Yeah.
Go like, you know what? I want to play again. And then I want to play ping pong, or I want to play something else I'm better at.
Dude, she's incredible at pool. Like I've never gone to a pool hall until I started dating her. And we go like throughout the last 3 months, we probably go every day, every other day to like different pool halls.
Well, that's good that you guys
Yeah.
something to connect on, and that's a game you guys like to play, and you play together, and it's 1-on-1, and change the game too. Play 9-ball, don't play 8-ball all the time.
Oh,
Play
dude,
something.
we played 9-ball for the first time the other day. I ended up getting the winning shots on the other team. It was just a random duo that we met at a bar. Oh, great feeling.
That's the thing about pool. I've played a bit. It's very popular in Thailand, but it's funny when people that are really good
Yeah.
get beat.
Yeah.
Because I'm one of those. I can play, but I'm not serious about it. It's just not a game that I get really excited about. But I'll play, and I know how to
Right.
play pool on a
Right.
mediocre, but I can surprise you at any moment and beat someone that's really good.
Yeah.
Like I've
Yeah.
ran the
100%.
table a couple times in my life out of 1,000 games of pool or whatever, or 500 games, and that other person's like,
Yeah, what the
Yeah.
heck is this? Yeah.
and
I've
that's fun.
watched it happen many times now when we go out to bars and play other people because she is really good and these guys will be like running the table for a little bit and then she'll beat one of them. Oh, it's the greatest look on their face.
So look.
Look.
That's the funny thing. I remember when I first I had an ex-girlfriend that was into yoga, and she took me to hot yoga for the first time. I hated that. I had to be quiet
Mm-hmm.
the whole time.
Sit there
I'm
sweating.
not good. Like I'm not limber at all.
Yeah.
As a guy like I did running for years and didn't stretch, not smart, and played basketball and all these things, didn't stretch a lot. And my hammies and all that thing, I couldn't do all these things everyone else could do.
Right.
I was like, my internal dialogue was like, fucking this. Like I was just like, everyone's supposed to be all zenned out and enjoy it. It was a long hour and 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then I just remember him being like, just don't leave the room. Don't like walk out in the room. But if you want to take a break or just lay on the mat, you can. And that was like, oh yeah, I'll do that then. Like when I'm not feeling good, I'll just take a break for a moment. And I stuck with it. And then I got some of those benefits over the years. But for years, I would just go, even though I didn't want to go, for the benefit of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just said about the journaling. But over time,
I mean, that was gym for me too. Like I hated working out and now I do it
unfamiliar.
every day, every other day.
Well, there you go. So like when you start to learn some things about your girlfriend, you'll start to learn the minefields or the soft spots, hopefully, that don't need to be avoided, but just,
Well, it's really, the self-recognition of it. Yeah.
You don't need to take it personal.
100%.
And women are very emotional. Obviously, you know that already. So like there's certain times of the month they're more emotional. There's certain things that they're more emotional about. And so you raising your voice like that, like I said, in that moment, someone could have took that as a joke. That's another woman. So
yeah, exactly. I don't take it in like it was a mistake. It happens. I just got to move on from it. That's not irreparable either.
But it also is good to know that like in a moment where you're uncomfortable, that you can be human and lose your cool, and like we're not going to break up.
Yeah, that was a nice. She's over here being a great person, being like trying to reassure me and give me what I need, as well as I'm uncomfortable giving her space, but I'm trying to give her what she needs too. So it does still feel very like I can be optimistic about the future with her. Like I know people that would have just called it right there because they're uncomfortable.
Yeah. Well, and also listen to her. I need some space. Okay.
Yeah. Well, with my anxiety, the one really helpful tip that I found was when I recognize that I start getting anxious, I need to go against my nervous system and just back off of her a little bit. And when she starts feeling uncomfortable, like she wants to get some distance, something that she can do, and I think that she's recognizing this is like she'll go against her nervous system and try and do something that gets us closer. Like we are actively trying to feed each other's needs and reestablish our own habits, because when I get anxious, the first thing I want to do is cling to my partner or get get affirmation from them or like be told that everything's okay and stuff like that. When what I really need to do is go against how I've always done it my entire life and just like take a step back and just self-soothe a little bit.
That's good, man. That's
Yeah.
good. I mean, you're light years ahead of most people your age, man, in your 20s, and it's all because you've had some bad breakups, right?
Bro, yeah.
Right.
I mean, like,
So,
I'm thankful for those just for the everything that's come from it. I
yeah,
just
it's part
these
of it.
relationships and like my self-recognition and stuff is getting better and better with time. So
Absolutely, bro. Well, I'm glad you called in. I'm glad you shared this. I'm glad you're doing well, and keep in contact and go play some tennis.
yeah, we'll see. All right, thanks a lot.
All right, bud. Take care. Okay. Let's check in with the what's up, Clutch? How have you been? I don't know if you're still on deck. Another point of playing tennis with an avoidant is the perfect metaphor of what that relationship is like. Okay. Snooker, are you good? Okay, so this is private here. Rationalization is a big for avoidance. They can't commit, so they justify the emotion that is fueled by fear. Okay, we talked about this. Chess or poker? Great talking to you, Percy Blue. I really appreciate you calling in and sharing, and you know, working with you in the past. Your progress is my progress, and your progress is mine. Vice versa. I really believe in that, and I think you're doing really well. You're doing really well. Like if you, isn't it? It's kind of one of those things. When you're going through some different things, you don't realize how much you've progressed, right? And it's like what I've noticed is people get to a certain age, and if they've been habitually, impulsively acting unconsciously on bad patterns, they don't realize they're doing it. From the outside, someone's like, "Oh, why do you always end up with, someone that's verbally abusive to you?" It's usually not by accident. It's by acceptance. It's by what you're used to. It's by what you're filtering for. And what a good thing to gauge sometimes too is not necessarily is my new partner more attractive. Am I finding people that are better fits or equal or higher? Am I finding myself in better relationships am I finding myself with people that were better than the ones I've been with in the past, whether that's communication, whether that's intimacy, whether that's support? No, I've heard of that book. Just got brought a mango smoothie here. That's good, man. Love mangoes. I've heard of that book, The Expectation Effect. Is there something you want to touch on about that? But no, I haven't. Haven't listened to that. Was it good? And what was it? What'd you get from it? Ooh, 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 as I stutter. Ooh, ooh, ooh. I've actually seen it, I believe, in my suggested things for Audible. I think that expectations are an interesting thing because someone might say the expectations you have are too high. Well, that's just your expectations, but expectations are based on what? Past experiences. So it's interesting. A lot of times what I'm realizing in dealing with so many new and different people is It's not people's fault for who they are. I don't think people might be built in with, and this is debatable, whether humans are built with a blank sheet or if they have some inherent personality qualities already in them, which I think you do. Because if you look at little kids, 2, 3, 4 years old, they have personality traits. Kind of, they're quiet, they're calm. Not all this is just from their parents, right? Because you can have 2 different kids in the same household with different personalities. That being said, when someone gets to the age of 18 to 23, their personality might be a certain way, but how they make individual decisions and make choices, which really what shapes our lives, is going to be shaped by past experiences, or what they've been told is wrong or right. Pull this up. The expectation effect. Yeah. Hold on. Explores the connection between our minds, our bodies, and our outcomes. It explores how our expectations can form our realities and reveals the extent of which self-fulfilling prophecies shape our lives. I'm just looking up at notes really quick for this. God, there's a lot. So this will be fun. How about this? Good to see the old. We got 10 on deck. Anyone that wants to call in or ask about a breakup situation, relationship, situationship, as I put it now, where you're in the middle of something, your ex came back or is back in the picture, right? Flint, wink, wink. They've come out of nowhere. Whatever you want to talk about, put it in the comments below. We have an open discussion right now. No problem. I've talked about the mind maps already. One thing I'm going to pull up that might be fun for us, since we can pull up the screen. Hold on a sec. Do that. Is no. Yeah, there it is. So we can maybe go through this. Oh, this is the. No, it won't show that big, huh? The book summary of what you're talking about. Our brain's expectations are intricately woven into everything we experience. In World War II, morphine was running low, so thousands of soldiers undergoing surgery were injected with saline solution and told it was morphine. The placebo was 90% as effective. Oh my God. Because right when I read that, I'm like, well, that's the placebo effect. But I guess it's expectations. The placebo sec the I mean, expectations are the placebo effect. I mean, when you really look at the placebo effect and the power of belief, it is absolutely amazing. You don't need to overthink this, but I forgot what book I read it in. But it was a guy that I think it was Man, it'll come to me in a moment. Let me let it go for a minute. 25 to 30% of all pharmaceuticals that get tested in a placebo are placebo based, right? Like that's a known fact that pharmaceuticals don't really advertise. That when they do their trials, 25 to 30%, if you get a sugar pill and you're told it's going to work to clear your acne, all right, so let me pull this up. Like I said, for some reason it's not big enough. Whatever, we'll just go through this. Wow, this is a big book notes. All right. In an antidepressant drug trial in Minnesota, a man took 29 pills and was immediately rushed to the hospital. When he arrived, he was pale, drowsy, shaky, and had extremely low blood pressure. Spent hours trying to improve his condition, but couldn't. When a doctor from the clinical trial arrived, he told the man that he had not taken the active drug and was overdosing on dummy pills. After hearing the news, the man made a full recovery. This is placebo. In 2011, psychologist Dan Ariely handed out identical sunglasses to study participants and asked them to read words under the glare of a bright light. Participants told they were wearing expensive Ray-Ban glasses, read twice as many words correctly as those that thought they were wearing mid-market brand sunglasses. These findings are examples of what scientists call the expectation effect. See, this is what gets me, Rob. So it's placebo effect, so it's the power of belief, and now it's the expectation effect. Everyone needs to change the term, right? The power of belief. No, it's called the expectation effect now. This is funny. I don't think any of them are wrong. I just think that everyone needs to seem significant and important and groundbreaking, needs to change the definition. Expect rituals to boost your performance. Serena Williams bounced the ball exactly 5 times before serving. If you think these rituals seem like a waste of time, think again. Empirical research shows that rituals are powerful performance-enhancing tools. A study in the Journal of Sports Sciences found that elite basketball players are 12% more likely to make a free throw if they execute a pre-shot ritual. After discovering the power of ritual, author David Robson, or Robeson possibly, started counting his coffee beans before making coffee for a writing session. He says it imbues my drink with a sense of significance and primes my mind for focus and concentration. Before any activity that requires total concentration, perform a ritual you believe will boost your performance. Do a breathing exercise like deep diaphragmatic breaths. Listen to a specific song. All right. So one thing that I could say about this is another thing with placebo and beliefs. I like this idea of ritual being something that you can believe in. Another thing that's probably one of the biggest reasons that people follow people's information on YouTube is why. So this is kind of an interesting thing that I've noticed recently because I'm getting clients regularly, and I'm not going to say the names of these other coaches or people that give advice on love or relationships, and they're not really happy with their coaching sessions. I should say that's an understatement. But why are they paying $500, $400 for these coaching sessions that end up not going well, below expectations? Right. And by the way, my coaching sessions, which are $125 an hour, $225 for 2 hours. If you don't find it helpful or useful, I'll give you a refund. Bottom line. There's some of these clients of mine that are talking about some of these other people. There's one guy in particular that has a pretty big following or channel on YouTube. And I've had 3 different people tell me that he's in his pajamas or like a t-shirt, like he's going to bed on his couch, laying down while they're talking. And he keeps interjecting and telling them what they should do, what they have to do, when they want to talk about their problems. This has been told to me multiple times. And I think his coaching sessions are like $400 an hour. Now, if that's the case, why are people choosing him? So this is an interesting thing, Rob, is if expectation is based on belief is going to empower your outcome, which I'm with you. And this is what manifestation is, right? Manifestation is energy, belief of an outcome already happening. So people that manifest money, this is big on Mind Valley now. Hey, let me tell you about the woman that won the lottery 18 times. God, I'm sick of seeing that ad. It's not that I'm saying that the lady didn't win the lottery, but just the constant, and the guy that's pitching the ad had nothing to do with winning the lottery. He's just eating off it. He doesn't have any of those skills built in. She manifested it. What she did is she took herself to the end and said, I've already done it. So this would be like if you played a basketball game and you visualize at the end of the game, you won. That would be manifestation. Does it always work? No. But does it work a lot? Yeah. Okay. So what happens on the internet now that builds people's expectations to a high level? Authority figures. So it used to be a doctor was an authority figure. You go to a doctor, they have a PhD, they have a lab coat on, they work at a hospital. That's the person you go to about your body, and you have a sinus infection, and they tell you, well, it's a clogged such and such, and they tell you all this stuff, and you go, yeah, okay. You never push back and go, sometimes you can get a second opinion, but at the same time, they're an authority figure. Well, this is a big thing when you start to unpack this. Your parents are your authority figures till you're in your teens, and then you start rebelling a little bit because you get other people's opinions. Authority figures shape beliefs. The problem now is an authority figure on the internet is what? Someone with a following? I get asked all the time. This is probably one of the biggest questions, like at the end of a coaching session, everything goes well and people go, I don't understand. I think you should have more views. I don't know why people don't follow your material, because that's a measurement as if I'm an authority or not. And we don't realize it, right? Right now on the internet, like Michael Jordan or LeBron James, you would think is an authority figure on talking basketball. But these figures, if they want to tell you about some kind of t-shirt that they're selling, or some kind of shoes, well, they're an authority figure, so people are going to listen to them. Maybe politics. And so someone gets judged a lot of times by the amount of views, subscribers on YouTube as an authority figure. And you go to YouTube to learn or to be entertained, or hopefully both, maybe, if someone's entertaining while they're teaching. So your idea of what makes them an authority is how many other people watch them or how popular they are. That wasn't the case for doctors. It was just assumed that this person's a doctor. It takes a lot to become a doctor. They're automatically smart. Have you ever met someone that was a doctor and you're like, wow, this person's not as... Have you ever met someone that has a really high-end job that you thought was, this articulate person? And you're like, I've met business people where I'm like, God, this person just doesn't seem very smart. That was an expectation in my head. All right, let's get back to this little review here. Expect mental simulation to enhance your abilities. When a group of cadets in an officer training were given a standard eye test and then asked to go in a flight simulator and told to take the simulation seriously like a pilot would, they read serial numbers on approaching planes in the simulation that were much smaller than the text on a standard eye test than they were available to read. Why could the cadets see better after imagining they were pilots? The cadets expected pilots to have excellent vision, so their minds and bodies did what they could to improve their eyesight. You can use this finding by visualizing demanding situations to enhance your abilities. Whatever activity you're about to do, imagine an extreme version of the activity that demands your best self. If you're about to play a chess game with a friend, close your eyes and imagine you're sitting across from the world champion, Magnus Carlsen. If you're going to have any chance against him, you'll need extreme levels of concentration. Before a pickup basketball game with friends, imagine playing one-on-one with LeBron James. Isn't that funny? I just mentioned him. And needing the quickness to defend against James' drive. When you go to start the game with your friends, you might play the best basketball of your life. You want me to teach you guys something interesting? Thank you. I appreciate that. I take that as a really nice compliment, right, Flint? When people give you an example in books, myself included, they're giving you examples from their lives or their clients, or a lot of the examples. So this guy giving, if I had to guess, this guy likes chess and basketball himself. So if you want to learn about people and they give you examples about things, it's usually about things that they're interested in. Expect your willpower to be limitless. Think of a time you resisted a strong temptation, felt strengthened, and found it easier to withstand additional temptation. It is possible to push the limits of what we can achieve through a simple change of mindset. Numerous studies show that those who adopt a non-limited view of a mind's resources recover faster from a tiring workday and achieve greater productivity the following day. In fact, people with non-limited view of willpower are more productive after demanding days. Well, this is where I usually say that, and this is why I like people to write their story out, or I like going through your stuff with you, because I'm just finding out where your gatekeepers are, where you're limited, and where you build a case for whatever you believe in. Okay, the simplicity of building a case for the phone you buy. You know what's really interesting is when I was a university teacher, kids would always get the new iPhone. And it's really expensive, right? Especially for college students. And I would say, well, what's the new iPhone have that the older iPhone didn't have? And they would be stumped. They would go, it takes better pictures. They wouldn't know all the features. But the expectation is it's an iPhone. It's the best. It's what I've always used. And so you got to know what you're building a case for. And so what he's saying about these expectations is building your case, but putting you in situations to expect the best. This is a lot about belief. Discover the power expectations have on outcomes. Feels like the idea of mind over matter has use in almost any scenario. In sports, coaches preach the idea of using mental toughness to push past our body's known physical limits. All right, so that's a generalization. That's a surface-based thing. Have more mental toughness. How? In the business saying, if you can dream it, you can do it, has practically become the go-to slogan from entrepreneurs and innovators. All right, so this is really good. This is one of those things where, thanks for bringing this up, Rob, this book. No. All right. Wish I could make that a little bit bigger, but it'll take me too long to figure out on this. All right. So for example, okay, let me get back to these. The mind over matter, have more mental toughness. If you can dream it, you can do it. Right. Great statements that are umbrellas that can mean 10,000 different things. Mental toughness is like, okay, so if you can dream it, you can do it. And in medicine, even just receiving a diagnosis as being sick or healthy can make all the difference in how our bodies actually feel. Think about it. Have you ever found yourself reading a list of symptoms for an illness only then to begin each of those very symptoms shortly after, even if they weren't there before? Absolutely. So I agree with this. But here's the thing. So for example, let's take, if you can dream it, you can do it. Let's take that. Let's take that statement. I'm with you. If you can dream it, you can do it. Now, there's individuals out there that go, correct me if I'm wrong on this. I never remember my dreams. I don't have a good imagination. Now, full disclosure, I'll be authentic right now, Riflin. I don't have a great visual imagination. I've tried. I'm still working on it. When people close their eyes and they visualize things, I do meditation. I attempt to visualize things. People go pull up a cinema screen. I do guided meditation with clients. Right? I do guided meditation with clients, which is a form of hypnosis. And they're like, they're in the moment. They're seeing the picture. I hear the message. I'm very auditory. That's why I talk a lot. That's why I can talk for 2 hours and 11 minutes and it feels like 10 minutes. Now, Ben W., welcome. When you say, if you can dream it, you can do it, has practically become a slogan for entrepreneurs. Someone might go, I don't remember my dreams. I can't dream it. So you'd have to change those words or use what works best for them. For example, guided meditation, hypnosis with someone guiding me works really well for me. It helps me get in that mode. It helps the structure of it. Okay. So a statement like, if you can dream it, you can do it. It's not going to land with everyone. And it's also doesn't really have a plan, doesn't really have a tool or a resource. It's just assuming, oh, people can just close their eyes and go into dream mode. Some can. A lot of them become entrepreneurs. You know who's one of the greatest examples? I haven't done a lot of research on him, but it's absolutely incredible. Tesla. A lot of what he did was meditating and dreaming. Lucid dreaming type stuff, and he'd come up with inventions and visuals and all these types of things. He did it since he was a little kid. So when someone says that, or when someone says, for example, the biggest one in the self-improvement world, which I'm be on your purpose. What is your purpose? I remember I was out to dinner. This was like a year ago. B was with us. And another friend who's highly successful, highly disciplined, very wealthy. And I was like, oh, be on your purpose. He's like, what does that mean? He didn't even know the statement. He's in his 50s. He's never even heard of it. I don't think he's read a lot of self-improvement books. What does that mean? I said, well, being on your purpose means like you're pursuing what you really want to do. You're pursuing what's important to you. Right now, someone would be like, no, that's not what it means, Mac. Really? Okay. It means different things to different people. Now, what the problems with like be on your purpose, right? Back in the day, I've said this, when there was cavemen, probably was kids, right? Staying alive. That was the purpose. And if you meet anyone that's a good parent, they'll be like, oh, it's my kid. That's why I work. That's why I do everything I do to take care of them. And now it's become like, oh, my purpose is what, like, it's different. It's a very broad statement that's just thrown around. For another one, oh, you got to change your energy. We're all energy. Okay. How do I change my energy? Right? So when someone has specific things, they're going to mean different things to different people. Okay. And so, like I said, these kinds of things are good, power of expectation, and have outcomes. I would say that creating new expectations is knowing what you want. So, but imagine, let me go. Why age is really nothing but a number. The effects of placebo drugs have on your body. Why pointing a kangaroo bone at someone can be fatal. I don't know that. You want to hear something really interesting about expectations? They change with environments. So if you want to know what's one of the biggest things affecting you that you're unaware of, beyond like you're the average of your 5 best friends, or you're the average of the 5 YouTube channels that you follow or content you follow now, because that's highly influential. It's where you live. It's your environment that you live in. It's affecting who you are and what you do. It's like when I go back to California and I visit family, I'm not able to go to the beach every day, which is 5 minutes from my house. I got a beautiful range of green mountains 5 minutes from my house where I can go hiking at any time. Right? I just don't have that. I just don't have that as readily available in the locations I'm staying at. It'll change my day. It'll change what I do. It might even change the way I feel. So these expectations are tied to where you're at. Let me get into the live stream and then I'll go back to the book summary. Ben W. Seems like through a painful experience is when you grow. What are the best ways to grow without that pain? Great question. Great question. There's a book called Mastery. There's one by Robert Greene, but there's also another book by what's his name? George Leonard. It's also called Mastery. And there's a concept in there I commonly tell clients about, and they really like the way that lines up. And what I would say about that is growth. A great question, Ben, because a painful experience is one of your greatest lessons that's imprinted on your mind, right? So don't touch the stove, honey, because you'll get burned. What does the 5-year-old kid do? Touches the stove, and then they don't touch it again. This is how you learned when you were a kid a lot of times. It's why kids got spankings or got belted or something when they were young. So you don't do it again. Unfortunately, some parents just overuse that as a thing, right? I think my grandfather, who never smoked, his Irish father put him in a bathroom when he was like 14 and had him smoke cigars after catching him smoking. Never smoked again in his life. Ironically, my grandmother he married died of cancer, lung cancer. So yeah, painful experience when you grow or you make better decisions based on those experiences. The best way to grow without pain is to realize that growth is slower than you think. Someone like myself can appreciate 5 years and 9,000 subscribers, million views. I don't get too caught up in that, but it's slow. It's growth. Every year I get more and more and more. Now, growth is tiered. Really good growth is tiered. So what do I mean by that? A tier is like this, right? What people want is this: 0 to 100, fixed, satisfy me, get me there. That's why you take drugs. If you took drugs, what happens? Usually most drugs are what? Instant. Is that true or not true? So a best way to grow without pain, people that go to the gym and grow their muscles, it's tiered, right? It's like, oh, they've got, and they can measure this because they can check their body fat and they can do all these things with pictures and different things like that. But first month, maybe 2 months away, it's tiered. It's tiered growth. Now, the same thing applies to your job. If you have a job that has no growth, there's no tiers. But if you start a job that's like, for example, when I was a teacher, if you're a teacher and then you get tenured, then you become a principal, you become maybe an owner of a private school. There's tiers to that growth, right? I don't know. And you can judge your growth based on your own tiers. But here's what's really interesting. You're always growing regardless, Ben, because I'm 42 right now. And if you took me, I've said this statement before, sorry to be redundant with the people on the live stream, but if you said, hey, Mac, do you want to be 21 again? Can I take my wisdom with me? Now, my wisdom doesn't mean I'm smarter than Ben W. or Rye Flint. It just means that in 20 years since I was 21, there's a lot of shit I learned. And it doesn't have a lot to do with school. It's life experiences. All right. And so the best way to grow without that pain is to be honest with yourself wherever you're at age-wise right now and go, man, there's a lot of things I learned. Right? There's a lot of ways I've grown up that didn't involve pain. Not all of it. There's different tiers you're at. If you're relating it directly to relationships, and I'll add another caveat to this great question, the great Ben W, or I might just call you B-Dub. The other question of this, the other part of this is the painful experience isn't painful in hindsight. Think about that for a minute. If I go back to 14 years ago when I had a bad breakup and I was, oh my God, this is like, how do I get over this kind of a thing? And my breakup is different than Ben W's and Rob's and everyone else's. But for me, it just hurt. And I thought, when am I going to shake this? Now I look back and I go, thank you for that experience. It's not even painful. I'm grateful for it. So a painful experience in the rearview mirror 10 years later can go, thank you for giving me that experience. Because what it does is it's water in the desert. Your life's biggest values come from contrast, whether you like it or not. If you go without water in the desert for a day or two and you have your first glass of water, it'll taste like the best thing you've ever had in your life because you haven't had it in 2 days. If you look back on your painful experiences and you think about how to contrast it over your life now, it's not as big a deal as it used to be. If I had that same experience with my wisdom, my confidence, and who I am right now, I wouldn't be in the same state. I wouldn't be the same way. I wouldn't react the same way. Right? I think that, and then the dramatics of your growth doesn't feel as significant because clean, substantial growth is slower usually. It's not as extreme. Because if you have a bad experience followed by a good experience, the bad experience seems, oh my goodness. If you had a really bad bite of food and you had a really good if you have to eat food you hate, you had to eat crickets for a month. People actually eat crickets. And then all of a sudden, you're offered your favorite pizza. That pizza's going to taste so good. Yeah, I hear you. I've been on a journey on all of this physical, career, emotional growth. In the moment, it burns. But without that, I guess I would still be pushing. It's just teared. That's how it is. Really teared. And as I mentioned in a quote on Instagram, I'll pull this up. And if you guys want to add me on Instagram, you can. Not that I'm extremely active on there, but it's a way to message me sometimes. God, some of the stuff that's posted on Instagram is so canned. This one just recently. Okay. So this was from the great Seneca Stoic. The happy man is satisfied with his present situation, no matter what it is. This is what I wrote as a comment to that. Happy always is a stretch. Maybe content would be better. Sometimes happiness takes a break, or you wouldn't even know you were happy. So think about that, B-Dub. I've thought about that before. How do I know what being really happy is if I haven't been in pain before, if I haven't been in a bad place? I remember in my late 20s having that first bad situation. I was like, damn, I've never been this lost or confused or upset. How do you know what happiness is if you don't know what it is to be sad? How many times have you met people that have the world nicked in your mind? Usually, let's just be honest, in 2023, it's people that are rich, right? People that have a lot of money and they seem unhappy. They're complaining all the time. They're upset. They probably haven't seen enough things to be appreciative of what the position they're in, right? The happiest people, they're not, and this is what's always crazy, because we always think, man, if I was that rich, people I know that have the most money, sometimes I don't want to say they have the most problems, but the problems that they're upset with, a lot of other people wish they had those problems to be upset about. Riflin says, I can't picture things in my mind or remember my dreams. So the thing about dreams is I do believe we all have them. I do know that if you attempt the night before, if you say, I want to remember my dream, you'll probably remember it in the morning, but somehow, as dreams do, they dissipate. So you'd have to get like a notepad to write it down. And depending on where you're at in your life, you'll dream more than other times. Now, excuse me, did you hear that mango shake come up? Excuse me. The other thing about dreams is they are affected if you're doing taking medicine or sleeping pills, alcohol. Those things can make the dreams less. I've had friends that were alcohol issues and they dream a lot when they're outside of that realm. I'd also add, here's the funny thing. You say, I can't picture things in my mind or remember my dreams, but you have remembered some dreams, right? So what's interesting about that is I've had a few significant dreams, one in particular that happened about a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. And it was vivid, and it was like, wow, I haven't had a dream like that in a long time. And I remembered it and had a really significant thing happen in the dream that was unbelievable and shocking and surprising. And that thing happened to me 2 weeks later. Not as the dream suggested it would happen, because dreams are very metaphor based. There's just hidden meanings in there. But it was dead on what the end result was. And they can't picture things. I just have a block about that, I think. But I work on it. But I've definitely, even though I don't remember my dreams very often, like once in a while I do. So we're all capable. But people that visualize really good, And I deal with it when I do guided meditation and hypnosis. Caveman purpose was getting food and getting offspring. There you go. And I mean, has it changed that much? Let's see here. So getting back to your book, you have untapped reserves of mental stamina. When Barack Obama was the president of the United States, he wore almost exactly the same suit every single day. The only thing that varied was the color. Then it wouldn't it wouldn't be the same suit if it was a different color. It'd be the same brand or same cut. The suits were either dark brown or navy blue. Obama isn't alone in his he wore almost the same suit every single day. No, Obama isn't alone in his limited wardrobe choices either. In fact, lots of highly successful people like Steve Jobs. Yeah, this is true. It all has to do with their expectations, but you'll discover in the summary these expectations are totally wrong. The reason why Obama and Zuckerberg dress the way they do is because they're trying to get rid of unnecessary decision making. All right, so Steve Jobs was one of the first. He always wore this black. Yeah, you don't have to make decisions about what you're wearing. Hence the reason why people have uniforms too. It's also an identity thing. For most of us, deciding what to wear each morning requires conscious thought. Do these pants match the shirt? Are these the best shoes to wear with this jacket? According to the theory known as ego depletion, I've never heard this term ego depletion. We only have a limited amount of mental resources to use on decisions each day. After we've done a certain amount of hard work, our decision making or difficult thinking, those resources are exhausted. With this in mind, these leaders don't want to waste their mental capacity on thinking about exactly what to wear. On the surface, ego depletion theory seems to make sense. After all, how many times have you come home from a hard day's work? So I'll take this a step further as far as I've heard this before. I've never heard ego depletion. This is where they change the terms of it. But wearing the same thing takes less decision making. I'd also add what you wear is an identity statement, right? So that's why uniforms have the company on there, because they want you to identify with working with that company. It's not just for advertising. There's certain people that have to wear suits, but they become authority figures. Your expectations of I wore a suit for years in my early 20s, and you get treated different, right? You get treated and I liked wearing a suit. It wasn't a bad thing. You get treated different at the banks. You get treated at the coffee shops different. Not like you're low, but you can tell people look at you in a higher level because suits, especially suits, they've been around for over 100 years as a prestigious way to dress. Now, what's interesting is what's interesting about that, there was like this 1920s remake of New York where they put it in color. Everyone had a suit on. Like there was no one without a suit. It's pretty interesting. So getting back to placebos are powerful drugs with many potential benefits. Is it ever right for a doctor to lie to their patients? In the 19th century, U.S. President Thomas Jefferson wasn't so sure. On the one hand, he knew that it was morally ambiguous for a trusted doctor to deceive a patient. But on the other hand, Jefferson believed that placebos can do patients a world of good. 200 years later, science is beginning to understand that Jefferson might have been right. A placebo is a dummy medication that contains no active ingredients. So, I mean, the placebo has been done thousands of times. In extreme cases, negative expectations can kill you. After discussing the positive effects expectations can have on our minds, it's only fair to also lay out the risk of negative expectations. Age is nothing but a number. Patty Jones loves to dance salsa, not just any salsa, but acrobatic salsa. Huh? This form of dance involves swinging through the air on trapeze and requires perfect agility and poise. Joan is a good acrobatic salsa. So good, in fact, that she and her dance partner, Nico maybe, have been featured in television talent shows around the world, from the UK to Argentina. But Joan's incredible salsa moves aren't the only reason she's become a dance sensation. It's also something to do with the fact that she's 85 years old. Ask Jones and she'll tell you that she doesn't feel hard to dance acrobatic salsa at 85. Why? Because she doesn't feel like she's in her 80s at all. Inside, she feels like a much younger person, and so she expects to perform like a young person. Okay. So one interesting thing about the age thing is environment counts. People you hang out with counts. There is a study. I don't know what study it's called. I've read it in books multiple times because a lot of people recycle these different things in different kind of self-improvement realms. And this is interesting. I might have mentioned this on the live stream before. And this is really interesting. They took this group of people that were, I believe, in their 70s and their 80s, and they took them back to like the 1950s when they were in their 20s, late teens. And when I said they took them back, I'm not talking about Back to the Future type shit or Michael J. Fox or any of that stuff. What they did is they didn't call it an old people's home, because I guess that's not a proper way to say it, but they put them in an atmosphere where there was music from the 1950s, there was posters from the 1950s, there was food that you would get during that time, there was all these kinds of things that when you walked into the room, you were in the 1950s. And then all these people were grown up during that age, and they were taken back to being in their 20s and late teens, and they actually monitored those people for the health benefits, and their nails were growing faster, their hair was growing more rapidly, their face and looks, their wrinkles were down. Someone's like, what study is that? I don't know what the name of the study is, but it was in multiple books. It makes sense because when you enter a room, it can bring nostalgia and it can bring you back to a certain time. But you wouldn't think it would affect your looks, your feeling. It's kind of interesting. So another thing that I would add about environments, bad habits. So they've talked about this on numerous books also. When Vietnam veterans were in Vietnam, and some of them were hooked on heroin, this was a big problem. I don't know what the percentage is or how they did this study or these facts, but it's been on many podcasts and different things. When they came back addicted to heroin, a lot of them came back to communities and areas that didn't have heroin for sale on the streets. They didn't have an area where heroin was sold, and they stopped doing heroin because the environments they were in didn't allow them to get access to it. And the people that they were around, none of them did heroin. Now, if someone moved back to an inner city where heroin was, like New York or something like that, where you could find anything, probably they were going to be more likely to do it. But that environment where it was very accessible and easy to get changed. And this is why I always tell people the environment you're in is really affecting your relationships a lot of times. And people that complain about dating, environment is probably one of the most overlooked, if not the number one thing that's going to affect. And really, if you're going to be in a competitive dating scene. You got to landscape the environment. All right. And almost half the time, a breakup, the relationship started for both of you and when you were primarily in different environments than you are when you were in the breakup. So if you had for example, let's say you met at your workplace. You guys worked at a restaurant. You were the chef. She was a waitress. And you end up together for 3 years. She gets a new job as a teacher. And you become a bartender at the same restaurant and the chef. You're going to have problems. Identities change. People you hang out with change. She's changing. She's hanging out in an environment teaching kids with totally different values of her colleagues. And you're in a situation where you're hanging out with people that drink, party, stay up late. You understand me? You can this is one of those things that comes across all the time in breakups. All right. Anyone have any final questions or comments? We went deep 2 hours, 40 minutes. Man, it's been a while, folks. Anyone want to throw me a super chat? Go ahead. But yeah, this and thanks for mentioning this book. It goes on. Final summary. Your mind is a powerful tool in the fight against illness, inaction, and even aging. By visualizing positive outcomes for yourself. This is what I do with guided meditation and hypnosis, Rob. You make it all more likely that those outcomes will become your reality. You might not be able to think yourself into becoming healthy or young, but you can certainly create the right mental conditions to help you flourish. To implement this into your daily life, here's a quick piece of actionable advice. So you got this huge long book and he has one paragraph of actionable advice. I like this. Good. It's hard to have a permanent positive mindset. So instead, try to find something tangible to help steal your mindset, like a lucky charm that an athlete might use. So his idea of creating a positive expectation is a lucky charm. Something that you can take with you on your daily routine, even if it's for your special occasion, like a big interview. If you can focus your expectation into this one lucky object, that might just provide that positive bit of expectation that you need to make a real difference. Because as we learned from the kangaroo bone, a little superstition can go a long way. So using sigils or lucky charms works, supposedly. How much you believe in them? Does anyone, you got a lucky charm, Rob? No. All right, folks, it's been good. It's been grand. Go ahead and check out, if you're going through it right now, I'm starting to put these mind maps up to give you some actionable game plans on what to do. I've put one up about writing your story and then getting it reviewed by a coach or a therapist like myself, just to review what I'm talking about. Writing out your story and talking to someone that's not a friend, family, or colleague that's going to be embarrassing to talk to or say the wrong thing is big. That's a big step. And then the next part is to strain out the problems, make them problems that you actually identify as fixable Hold on a sec. Let me just remove this. Let's just remove this. Acceptable, non-negotiable, negotiable problems, right? Make a list of them. Make a list of those things in your relationships. And then your action step is to make sure what you distinguish as fixable as something that you can solely fix. To assume a problem is fixable, but it takes the other person admitting that they agree it's a problem and they agree finding a solution is not a fixable problem. It's a conversation to have. And if you're already broken up, it's a conversation you already had. Example of this, they have major issues with their child and it's causing them to depression. So, like I said earlier, then someone goes, well, they need to go to therapy. That's not a fixable problem. That's something that they're not agreeing is a problem. So I hope that helped you. It was good to get back on deck with the live streams. I'll be back on deck again. If you want to go to rightmac.com to book a live coaching session, that's welcome. If you don't find it useful and helpful, I will give you a money back guarantee. But usually when someone books an hour, it ends up being 2 hours in my experience. So the great Clutch from Truth to Love, I don't know if he's still on, but thanks for popping in and making your comments. Rye Flint, always a pleasure. Percy Blue, who joined the live stream to unpack a few things. I think that was helpful, and I love hearing all the progress you're going through right now and working through your stuff where before you might have thought that there's no answer and you're just going backwards. You're actually really, really making some progress. My ex recently followed me on TikTok again. Well, there you go. Purpose does need to be more closely defined. Thanks for saying that, Rob. I'm so tired of that statement. Be on your purpose. Be on your purpose. I can't picture things in my mind or remember my dreams. Rye Flint, definitely send me your story and book a session and we'll talk about it. Get you some clarity moving forward. There's no reason to be embarrassed with me. Trust me. All right, folks. It's been good. It's been grand. It's been great. It is curtains.